How sweet it is! Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the dining room table and a little dial-in democracy through till midday today. You like that? A little dial-in democracy. What have we got on the table? Well, we've got Gary on the table. We've got Tony on the table. Thank you, Caroline. Caroline just brought me Who is Voting One Nation? Exclusive South Australian polling reveals. Wow. Oh dear. She will be very happy about that. And by she, I mean Pauline Hanson. Pauline Hanson, by the way, is a very special guest around the dining room table. And that'll be about 10:15, which means she'll be here with Professor Ian Plimer. And John Bruni before What are you laughing at, Maria?
No, I'm enjoying your guests.
Oh, yes, there's plenty of them today.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
What's on my mind? Lots. But one quick comment, because it's a federal issue.
Yeah.
Federal, they can't do their job with the fuel. We haven't got any reserve, and they're BSing us left, right and centre. They hedge fuel prices at $1 because back then it was $1. We don't need a new fuel czar. Public and business confidence is at an all-time low. We don't need extras. If the ministers can't do their job, get rid of them. You know, that would be the first thing that we could actually extract out of our costings.
Yeah.
Look, honestly, we out here are so upset. It's so too little, too late. They spin us and they spin us around, but we don't fall for anything. They can't buy our vote. They keep promising, you know, all this rubbish.
Well, we're stupid enough to not even want to sell our vote. I mean, it's a mystery to me how that crowd got back in, but with an increased majority, but they did.
But it's because of preferencing. We've got to get rid of preferencing. Labor preferences the Greens preference Labor. Some of the independents aren't independent and they've got their parties that they are attached to as well. We should have the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Well, this is the party that gave you the CFMEU. What do you expect? Oh, and the NDIS, don't forget that one.
Yeah, and already senior government sources are actually claiming prized cabinet positions. You know, that they are just so rude. So, what's the word? You know, when they're so...
you pick the word.
Hubris. They're so hubris. You know, everybody's in the media other than you, Jeremy, and that's why I love your show, because you give us a go. We can have our say. We agree to disagree, or we agree. You know, it's just fantastic. I've been trying to get onto one of those stations, you know, that we know about, and they don't even pick up the phone.
Well, look, just a little bit of background on that, and I can understand them after the ratings came out yesterday. I can understand the only commercial talk station in town, which is AA. I mean, I can understand them when they looked at the survey and realised that they were number 7 in a small market like Adelaide. Number 7.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a waste of electricity. That's extraordinary.
Actually, don't speak too loudly. You might, Kyle might want to buy 5AA.
Well,
millions of dollars he's going to get from ARN.
I think he could.
You know, the settlement he gets will be enough, I reckon, to buy it with their depressed share price at the moment.
He could probably buy it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Well, maybe all of us could chip in with a donation and you could buy it back, Jeremy.
Well, they don't talk to me.
They don't have any value.
I don't know. But the reason they're not answering that telephone, they possibly haven't paid their bill. I don't know.
Oh, it's just so annoying when they say, oh, have your say, and you try and get on and have your say, and they can't even pick up the phone, and this is just not a once-off. They talk about democracy, guys. Well, false and misleading attacks on a certain party is not being becoming, if you know what I mean.
Who are they attacking?
Pauline and Pauline's supporters.
You're kidding me.
And they've been doing it for 30 years.
Probably the most popular, able politician in the country, let alone the state, and they want to attack her.
Yeah, they try and beat her down.
They won't succeed.
And her candidates, well, I'll give you an example. On the, I think it was X or something, Nat Cook, one of the voters wanted to ask her a question, and she started screaming, help, help, being harassed. And the voter goes, I'm just asking you a question, it's just a little question. And she said, call the police.
Who said this?
Nat Cook.
Oh, Nat Cook. Oh, right. Yes. I thought you said Matt Cook. Okay. Okay. I know who you mean. I know who you mean. Yep.
Now, a constituent was wanting a question answered, and that's what she comes up with. Well, sorry, you've lost me. I was dithering. I've told you before, I'm a swinging voter, left, right. Well, no, not left. Labor, Liberal, never voted Green and never will, because they're just really unscrupulous. And when they say that there's no deals done and then you read that they've preferenced Labor, this is the problem how they got back in federally too, Jeremy, because of preferences. They only got 30% of the vote, but all this
through the Greens' preferences.
Yeah, Green preferences and, the monies that go into the campaigning, advisors, Labor, 20 advisors running the local campaign here in this state. Well, it's not a fair sort of scoreboard, is it?
No, well, winning is not the most important thing. It's the only thing. And Labor is a very well-oiled machine, very successful.
Yeah. And I'm upset with the Electoral Commission because their guide to voting is like crap, because they give you the example in the green form that you're number 4. But in the written form, they say 4, 5, 6, 7. But the true thing that they should have shown is 1 to 8, or how many candidates there are for the green form in each electorate, and say, you've got to actually number all the boxes in the green form.
Oh,
and
is this the above the line, Maria?
No, the green one.
Sorry, the lower house. Sorry.
Yeah. The white one, Legislative Council, you can just put 1, or you can actually, you can
do 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, whatever.
Yeah. So the guide is, pardon the French, it is actually shit. And they are protecting, and as some of the main media, they've been protectionists against Pauline Hanson's party. If you're going to do that, well, do it right across the board, because there's lots of Green mistakes, there's lots of independent mistakes. Labor isn't the end all of the be all. I would just like to say to Tom Cootes and Tonus, he was saying this morning, spinning that the unemployment and the economy is great. Well, if it was, Tom, we wouldn't be $50 billion in debt. And with all the promises and the pledges and the commitments, well, that's just going to add to the 50 billion. I'm not buying your vote. You can't buy my vote. I will give it freely with common sense. Peter Malinowskis promising last time to fix ramping, fail. Electricity prices, astronomical, fail. It should be free because most of the time we're over demand and they switch off and export it to wherever, mainly Victoria, but when we get the transmission line to New South Wales.
Isn't the Premier saying that we will be 100% renewables next year? Isn't he promoting that idea?
He is.
Well, how that's not possible?
But you can't do that 24 hours a day.
Yeah, of course you can't.
There's no sun at night.
It's misleading because it is already at 112%, 115% at times.
Tomorrow we're going to an election, one of two elections. We've got two elections on tomorrow. You know that, don't you, Maria?
Yes, I do. I do.
Isn't it interesting? I mean,
we should not have been.
Well, we voted overwhelmingly against the Voice, and what do they say? Well, okay, we'll find another way. Yeah. We'll put it in the back door. Yeah. And that's exactly what they've done.
It's slippery, slimy in my view.
How can you possibly, after you have recognised and helped to dismantle apartheid in South Africa, how could you possibly implement a two-tiered system like that, where you have Aboriginals who have got their parliament and they've got the white people who've got their parliament? I mean, it is apartheid, pure and simple.
Yeah. Well, they're actually dividing us. It's not us dividing, it's them dividing us. When you have three flags, and Torres Strait is up in Queensland, in the tip of Queensland. Why are they voting here? This is South Australia. That's an anomaly. Wait a minute, I'll put my teeth in my mouth. An anomaly, is that how you...
An anomaly, yep, yes. An anomaly. Well, look, yes. I don't think it's an anomaly. I think what it is just basic deception. It's ideological fixation with anything and everything that is aboriginal.
Yes.
And you're talking about 3% of the population. 3% of the population can't demand to have two flags.
And is that a true 3%, or is it I identify?
Well, you don't really know. There are about 700,000 Aboriginal people, I understand, in Australia.
There's voting tomorrow for a second member, isn't there?
Well, a second parliament.
Second parliament, yeah.
Which is totally bizarre.
It is bizarre.
And they're dictating over in Victoria already for a treaty and all the other guff that went along.
Well, the treaty is about compensation. It's about a redistribution of wealth. Like a lot of the stuff that comes out of Labor, it's all about a redistribution of wealth.
And you won't be able, like Uluru, you won't be able to go there, and you won't be able to go to our national parks. Yep. Jeremy, the other thing I am looking forward to tomorrow as I skip up to vote, I don't want any of the parties, mainly Labor, because they block your entrance into voting. Get rid of them away from my private space. They should be about 10 foot away from us, not shoving their papers in our face. Go over in the corner. If I want your papers, I will go over to you. I've been around looking and watching, some of the electorates, and that's what the main party is doing at the moment. They are stopping you from entering, them putting their papers in your face. It's not too late for an upset and a change.
Marie, what electorate are you in?
My electorate?
Yeah.
Finnis.
Oh, Finnis, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And if I'm here, on a permanent basis here in the hills, it's Hyson.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had an interesting altercation with our Bragg Greens lady, Susan Ditter. And I was talking to Caroline, who was handing out Jack Batty cards about the annoying brochure that came in. And then Caroline says, she's standing right behind you. So I told her what I thought of the Greens policies.
What exactly did you say?
Just what a disgrace they are. They'd wreck the economy in no time. Sarah Hanson, young rot.
That's assuming that Labor's going to leave something left of the economy to wreck.
Yeah, and she had nothing sensible in response.
No.
Absolute disgrace.
So she was the actual candidate?
Yeah, she's a candidate for Bragg. And she was floating around, like Maria says, handing out these, trying to hand out these. She wasn't getting much business, though, in Bragg. Lucky to get 5 or 10% there.
Yeah. A lot of people in the electorates of Hyson and Cavill, I say it as Cavill because there's no R in Carvill, they didn't even know that they were redistributed into Hyson. So that was another thing. If they're going to change the electoral lines, they should advise people, The other thing that I'm really upset about, that there's 24,000 elective surgeries on the waiting list with 6,000 overdue. So there's a fail there too. Education, they can't read and write, so there's a fail there too. Now, no dirty tactics. If we live in a democracy, no dirty tactics, no bringing up, I heard this morning, that the Premier was mouthing off at Pauline. Well, if you're such a great guy, you wouldn't have to mouth off. I think they're running scared, Jeremy.
I do. Yeah. I think tomorrow is going to show some very interesting statistics about the political
He's visibly nervous.
Yep. Oh, well, I don't blame him. I really do. Thanks for your call, my darling. Telephone number 0491 65 68 60 if you'd like to give us a call. Dr. John Bruni from Sage International will be with us very soon. He'll be in about 9:30. Professor Ian Plimer at 10. Pauline Hanson in shortly after that. There's a very interesting bloke called Dr. Neil Damigan. He is a scientist, he is an author, and he has written a book. It's quite a book. 400 pages. 400 pages. It's it's fiction. It's called the Deity Constant. Yes, the Deity Constant. But the interesting thing about the book is that there are 2 or 3 pages in that book where Dr. Neil Damigan proves that there is a God. And most scientists are very skeptical about God. But he actually proves that there is a God.
Depends what you define as God, doesn't it?
Well, I'm very keen to hear what he has to say because I haven't seen the book. I haven't seen the book. And Professor David Flint will be with us as well. So we got kind of I don't know what we could say. A full show, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if anybody saw 7:30. ABC 7:30 last night.
Yes, I did. I did. Yeah, the Iranian guy?
No, Madeleine King.
Oh, they were interviewing some Iranian defence guy as well. Did you see that?
Yes. No, I thought that was very good.
Yeah. He was about a quarter of an hour, though.
Yeah.
He was denying that. He was saying Australia took the those sports players the other day hostage.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
hey, look,
the guy's at Leith.
Yeah, but the Iranians obviously see the world through a completely different prism, a completely different lens. And, they just simply lie and lie and lie and lie. You can't do much about that. But the Madeleine King thing I found very interesting. Federal Minister for Resources, when asked on 7:30 how Australians, because she was talking about guaranteeing fuel to the people, how Australians would get fuel, she said, I couldn't believe it. She said, oh, well, I imagine they'll put it on trucks and deliver it.
Oh, that's right. I heard that. I know.
Isn't that amazing?
That's a very strategic response. Put it on. I saw that.
Yeah. How can you
What
guarantee
a genius she is.
What a genius.
Put it on a truck. What a brilliant idea.
And she didn't even say put it. She said, I imagine they'll put it on a truck.
I just thought that was hilarious.
I don't think that's what Sarah meant, Madeleine.
Well, you could build a pipeline, I suppose, very quickly. Go to Bunnings and get a bit of PVC tubing and whack it in.
I looked her up, and before entering politics, she was a political advisor.
That says it all, doesn't it?
Political advisor. Yeah. Okay, well,
meanwhile, the Welsh Parliament is pushing on with their legislation to nail politicians who fib.
Well, every time they lie...
It's getting a lot of momentum.
Every time they break a promise, I call it fraud. Because the contract with them was on the basis of you doing blah, blah, blah.
They should not be allowed to lie in Parliament.
Yeah, there's other countries now that are picking up on it. I think Canada was next.
Well, why shouldn't we, the people, have an assurance that the people we send to represent us will tell the truth?
There's no quality assurance in politics.
Why isn't there?
Most of them couldn't lie straight in bed.
Why isn't there?
Well, here's the professor.
Ah, indeed. Dr. John Bruni, ladies and gentlemen.
Applause, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, well, I was doing my best Dracula impersonation.
There was a press release, I guess, or a media release sent out by the Institute of Public Affairs, and they published some research on immigration. Mm-hmm. The Institute argues that the growing support for Pauline Hanson and the growing support for tougher migration policies and laws comes not from traditional conservative voters, but increasingly from migrants.
Yes, because they're all afraid of losing the lifestyle that they currently have with more waves of migrants coming in.
Which sensible, isn't it? Yes.
It makes 100% sense. I spoke on our podcast, The Focus, I spoke to a young influencer from the right of politics, George Mamalis, a really good guy. Anyway, when I was recounting the debates on immigration many years ago when I was in the Liberal Party, I always found myself on the other side of the argument. So there was this notion of a big Australia and a small Australia.
Yep.
Now, today, we craft that into the big Australia means, we're all friendly to migrants, we love multiculturalism, and the more the better, Okay. But back in those days, it wasn't couched like that at all. It was couched between the business community who saw a growing Australia needing a much larger population. So there was a big Australia movement who wanted, they had these plans, we need 50 million, 100 million people in Australia. Not that the carrying capacity of the continent could make that, but that was their plan. The small Australian mob, which I consider myself part of, saw the urban decline if we were to go down that path because, the one thing that people still don't understand, locals and internationals, this is a desert island continent. It is not a fertile, lush thing from north to south and east to west. We're not looking at a replication of the United States. Our arable land is very limited, our supply of water is very limited, and our city infrastructure is already overtaxed because, now we've got close to 30 million people in Australia.
So why wouldn't we tailor the number of people that we have into the country to exactly what we can accommodate?
Well, you see, the thing is that it's all been perverted by, the woke left-green agenda. Now, if you're talking about, I want a smaller Australia, that was a green agenda back in the day, but now it seems to be a quasi-racist phenomenon because those people who want a big Australia and a diverse Australia are arguing that you can't have that because that just shows that you're one of the right-wing populists, and I think that the debate has changed quite fundamentally from the time that I was political back in the day. Yeah. And really, I mean, a question that I asked George, and there was no easy answer for that, is that to what degree did the big Australia lobby within the party structure, both Liberal and Labor, win the debates constantly up until now all of a sudden we're all rebelling against it because we can see that there are clear limits to what we can absorb in this country. And it's not that we're not a welcoming country, but every country is crafted by geography and demography and society.
But if something doesn't work demonstrably, it's not a crime to admit it and point it out.
Well, no, it shouldn't be in a democracy. But, increasingly as politics is polarised and everyone sees each other as an enemy rather than a, co-Australian, it becomes a problem, yeah?
Yeah, it certainly does. JeremyCordeaux.com is the station you're listening to, wherever you are listening to it. All 4 million of you. God knows how you found us, but we're very happy that you did. 0491 65 68 60. I saw, I didn't see it actually, I heard it on 3AW. I was listening to 3AW. They have this interesting breakfast program, number one for years and years and years and years. And they were talking to some, I don't know what you'd call him, a strategist or people who study logistics and statistics regarding the military. And they were talking about Australia's refusal to send a warship to Iran or to the Strait of Hormuz. And he said, well, it's very, very simple. The reason for that was just we couldn't.
I think that's probably right.
He said...
Our instinct would be to support the Americans, but if we don't have a ship that's available, available for war, because we're going into a war zone, so, the crews need special preparations, the ships need to be made sure that they're robust enough to survive their deployment, and we need to have enough weapons for those vessels, and we also need to support and supply them. Yeah, that's a problem. But again, when we're looking at the idea of supporting the Trump administration on this particular war, there are political minefields that need to be, looked at very carefully. Now, for Israel, this is a war of necessity. For America, this was always a war of choice, and you only had to pick up the U.S. National Security Strategy 2025, published late last year, as well as the U.S. Defense Strategy document that was published earlier this year, to show where America saw Iran. It barely mentioned Iran as a threat, as a clear and present danger to the American Republic or its interests. So again, we have to see whether or not it was the Israeli tail that was wagging the American dog on this particular issue. And now that we're caught in this situation where the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' mosaic strategy, it's a strategy that apparently the Iranians are conducting at the moment, multi-layered, very deep, very hard to uproot. It's proving to be much more resilient than American and Israeli warplanners thought. And so now the only option that they have, because really, again, it's a political thing. So neither Trump nor Netanyahu want to be considered losers, and they don't want to be on the losing side of things. The only options they have now, clearly, is to escalate. Now, the Israeli strike on the South Pars gas field, which was arguably the most ridiculous, stupid and contemptible thing that could have been done, because, of course, that affects all of us in terms of gas prices.
Right? Exacerbate all the things that worry us about that war.
And the Iranians are now going to escalate their retaliatory capacity. But if you make this war riskier and more difficult for the international community, the theory, and again, I'm theorizing myself here, but I think there's some validity to it. The theory is the worse this war is, the more likely that the international community will have to intervene, because it is existential to everybody and we have to clear up Donald Trump's mess. Now, I think that if that's the theory, there will come a tipping point in the next 4 weeks where more and more international forces get deployed to look after the Strait of Hormuz, or, they'll try to limit themselves. They don't want to go all in, but they'll try to make sure that the shipping lanes are all clear and whatnot. And the Americans and the Israelis will conduct whatever their end game is for this war, if there is one. So in essence, I think it's almost inevitable that we're all going to get involved in this. The longer this goes on, the more damage to the international economy, the less sustainable it is for countries to sit on the sidelines and criticize Trump. Yeah. And now this could have been Trump's plan all along, because I know that there are a lot of people who love to sainwash Donald Trump and say he's a stable genius and he knows what he's doing. And, but if he's prepared to run an Israeli military agenda in contravention to his own national security documents, where clearly, I can't remember whether it was the National Security Strategy paper or the Defence Strategy paper, but one of those papers clearly said that after the June strikes last year on the Iranian, we obliterated Iran's nuclear program. Okay, well, that was actually put into one of those documents and said they have had no capacity to restructure or repair any of their nuclear program. Now, if that is in writing and it is at the senior level, Trump has just countermanded his entire freaking national security structure. It makes no sense.
He'd done the job, so why go back and do it again? But this thing about the Australian Navy was fascinating, because he said, and he seemed to have authority and knowledge. Yep. He said, no, it would be an incredible stretch for the Australian Navy to put one ship to sea and to put it in harm's way, so to speak. No. And they decided to have some fun with it on 3AW. So they looked up some landlocked Kyrgyzstan or some... They've got 14 ships. they don't even...
And they're all operational, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. And they don't even have a port. Yeah. But they've got ships. Yeah. And here we are, this island continent, and with a fantastic naval history.
Yes.
And we cannot. Our Navy is one ship, maybe. One ship, maybe. Yeah. Now, how did we allow that to happen?
Look, years and years of talking big on defence and never following up. It really comes down to that. And also our acquisition cycle. It's a loaded question, because I'd need at least a day to unpack it all. But the long and the short of it is, Jeremy, we've had Liberal and Labor Party Prime Ministers and governments come in, and they all love to stand next to the uniforms and wave the flag and be patriotic. And yet when it comes to funding the very defence forces that we need, they don't do it. They always say there's something more important, something like NDIS, for instance, or whatever.
And nobody's home.
Hang on a second. We have a caller. Hello.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Oh, hi. John.
How are you?
I'm well. What would you like to add to the conversation?
I want to add something that happened here on Tuesday, and it was on the television, where the Premier of the state and his healthcare minister came on to make statement that the algal gloom wasn't toxic. And yet there was a lady from America who's been doing studies on this for 10 years, said it is. And one particular gentleman from down in the Coorong area, I believe, or south of Adelaide, he went fishing and he felt ill. He ended up going to Western Australia, and after being in Western Australia for 10 days, he bounced back. His health came good again.
Oh, you can't say that it isn't toxic, because you can see the dead fish.
Well, this was all on Four Corners, wasn't it, Monday night?
Yes. It was.
Very serious.
Yeah. Well, the overseas expert, was she American?
She was.
So, well, what did she say about the toxicity?
She said it is toxic. There's no getting away from it.
But did she say how it got there and how it got to be toxic?
No, she didn't tell us how it got there and how it got to be toxic, Jeremy. But the thing is, what she said from studies that she's done, she apparently had stuff sent to New South Wales or what have you, and they did tests on it, and she said this problem does exist and it's not good for the health. people actually that were on the Four Corners program mentioned how to take a walk along the beach, you breathe this stuff. It's in the air. They reckon it can travel anywhere up to 4 kilometres when the foam's up inland.
Yeah. Well, it seems the official government response and solution to this whole problem is $100 million advertising campaign.
Of course it will.
We'll advertise our way out of this problem.
Doesn't exist.
Create a website.
Yeah, and a website.
And a committee. Don't forget a committee.
Committee, yes.
I'd like to add one other thing to it. Nicola Spurrier, who is the professor and the medical person for him, to my knowledge, she was only a paediatrician. She's no fully qualified doctor like.
Well, she was backpedaling at 100 mile an hour on the program you just mentioned.
Yeah,
I know
But
she
there
was.
again, elections coming up. They don't want to rock the boat too much.
Well,
Well,
if
the
you
thing
rock
is-
the boat and you get in that water, you won't be. It won't be happy.
Yeah.
Happy ending.
The thing is, they've announced that after they said polling booths had opened, and a comment that was made on the 100,000 odd people had already voted, and would have had an influence if they'd known this information.
Yeah.
But he's wanting us to go to places, near the coast to have holidays. Well, anyone in their right mind's not going to do that.
Yeah, well, you ought to feel sorry for the people who are running businesses in that neck of the woods because it's not their fault. And, they've got mortgages to pay and staff to pay, and, it's very dislocating. Yeah. But what can you do? These things happen to us all.
And then the other thing I'll just get on to, I can't believe that they didn't make Chris Bowen the minister in charge of this fuel that we're supposed to be needing.
Well, I don't know why we need a czar when we've got a minister.
We need to spend money, Jeremy, don't you understand?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot that a little bit.
We need to be seen to be doing something without doing anything at all. It's the Australian way.
Yeah, we're paying for it, who cares?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you, John.
No worries, Jeremy, thank you. And who was your caller there? Gary?
At the beginning?
Yeah.
You mean just now or at the beginning of the show?
Just now.
Oh, no,
Just now.
that's Gary.
Gary, that's what I thought. Thanks, Gary, for backing me. Have a good weekend. And, I just hope that the election has a better result than they're forecasting. I really do. But,
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. We live in interesting times, as they say. Telephone number's 0491 65 68 60, and I won't garble the phone number because you can't get it down. 0491 65 68 60. You got us that number, didn't you?
It's not a
Tony?
bad number.
It's a good
was
number.
A
I
random
like
one,
it.
but it's actually
memorable number.
I was going to ask John about this Joe Kent resignation. A lot of people are trying to discredit him and say he was a bit of a nutter and all that, but he sounds pretty sensible. Do you know much about him?
Look, all I know about him, and he's only come to public prominence because he was part of Trump's DHS counterterrorism national security architecture, and he was very much into MAGA. He was very much a Trump supporter, but now he cannot support Trump over the Iran war. I believe that he was also a war veteran. He spent time in either Iraq or Afghanistan or both or something.
He looks very young.
Yeah, he is. But he comes from a military background, if my memory serves me correctly. Yeah. And it is...
He's a veteran.
Yeah. So, I think anyone who has fought a war will understand that what we're currently seeing...
That's all right.
That what we're seeing right now is not, what we're seeing right now is just not what we want to be fighting. Because again, now we're seeing the idea that this war may involve troops on the ground. Now, there are not going to be enough troops to invade Iran, a country that is geographically much larger than Afghanistan and Iraq put together. It also has 90 million people, and it is effectively a hostile country. So what they'll probably end up doing, now there's been talk about taking out Karg Island, which is Iran's number one shipping port to, get its fossil fuels out into the international community. But then there's another secondary aspect to it. And there's an island, and if you take a map of Iran and you look further south, it has the shape of a shark. It's called Qasem Island. Mm-hmm. If the American forces, if the US Marines were to land in Qasem Island and create an unsinkable aircraft carrier from that island, they could use that as the forward base of operations deeper into southern Iran to flush out potential missile bases, launches, drone launches, and cruise missiles, which apparently the Iranians have, but they haven't actually unleashed just yet. This area here, of course, is going to be contentious because unlike a place like Iran, where it was all flat desert, we're looking at highly mountainous, rugged country. So it's going to be a very, very difficult task for the Americans, in spite of their superior firepower, training, doctrine, and everything else, to actually sustain themselves in that hostile environment. And, by the way, there's the weather. It's pretty damn hot. Sustaining yourself in that kind of hostile environment for a period of time is going to tax American forces, especially since we're only talking about a relatively small contingent of Marines at this point in time.
Sounds like a potential quagmire, and this is the thing that he promised in his election campaign: no more wars, forever wars. These guys aren't going to give up easily, are they?
No, they're not. I mean, no. Look, I've said publicly that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, but the Islamic Republic of Iran is fighting the world's largest martyrdom operation. They know that once the American bombs started falling this time, they either use what they have or they lose everything. So they are now doing the one thing that the Americans did not expect, and that is they are fighting the very wealth that Israel and America has in the world, which is based on corporations using oil and gas funds to, make sure that everything is all tickety-boo. Now, attacking the foundation of the Western economy is one way of fighting the war. The Americans and Israelis are just bombing targets and assassinating leaders. That's another way of fighting a war. But as I say, it's an asymmetric campaign. Mm-hmm. So those two sides are not fighting the same war. They're fighting different wars. Mm-hmm. The Iranians are fighting for survival, and they will throw everything at other targets that the Americans aren't covering.
Is it because they didn't think it through?
The Americans?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, they look, and it's not even that they don't have a great deal of knowledge. They've been wargaming wars against Iran going back to, probably since Ayatollah Khomeini took over in 1979. They've been wargaming this. They know that the Strait of Hormuz was always going to be the choke point of the world that could be the easiest to throttle for Iran. They probably knew the idea that if really confronted with an either-or situation where it's either going to be the Islamic Republic survives or not, the Islamic Republic will throw everything at the international community to destabilize the Middle East region, right? Because, why would the Iranians say, well, okay, let the bombs drop and, we'll be impoverished and out of power and we'll let the rest of the international community backed by Israel and the United States profit from this? We're not going to do that. And I think that was a rational response. I'm not saying that they're good guys. I'm just saying it was a rational response. And people who were wise in the Washington Beltway have gamed this out. What I don't understand is how Trump managed to have a national security paper, or two of them, which basically diminished the Iranian threat to the international community and to American interests in the Middle East, and then it just goes completely and overturns those documents. It's a very ahistoric thing for a president to do. But then Donald Trump, he says one thing, does something else. There was a comic that kind of encapsulates him. The whole very stable genius thing is that, Donald Trump is so clever that he doesn't even know what he's doing. And if he doesn't know what he's doing, his enemies don't know what they're doing, And maybe that's it. If we
keep on guessing.
No, let's continue sane washing this process and see where it gets us, yeah?
To what extent did the people rising up in Tehran energize Trump?
He gave him one of his many excuses for why the Americans needed to start striking Iran. But like with most things American, and here we have to take ourselves away from the Trump phenomenon, America has never really been good with having permanent allies in the Middle East. I mean, they've got Israel. That is the number one and only ally that they will always defend. But, we had the Kurds. We used the Kurds shamelessly and then threw them under the bus and let the Syrian and Turkish and Iraqi authorities just crack down on them. I think that these are sort of fair weather allies that we have in the Middle East. I think that there was the notion that once the American bombs fell in this current campaign, the Iranians would come out of their foxholes filled with revenge, grab an AK-47 and start shooting their IRCG and besiege people wherever they can find them.
Why didn't it happen?
Well, because no one in a shooting war gets out of their house. I mean, it's a shooting war.
But they
bombs
did,
go
they
astray.
did come out and they did demonstrate against the mullahs and the Ayatollah.
Not in the same kind of quantities as we saw in January. And the other thing that we did see, which is again, a sign of the regime being very resilient, was that there were pro-regime supporters who came out in their numbers. And, there you go. So, and when you look at the Iranian opposition...
Is there one?
Well, there are multiple of them, and they're all too small, and there's no one unifying figure. So again, when you need to overthrow a government, you need to have one dominant opposition leader. There is no one dominant opposition leader.
They need a Pauline Hanson.
Well, they probably do.
They probably do. I love the way Trump this morning said, I rang Bibi and told him not to do it again.
Oh yeah. Well, of course he did, but he would say that because he wants plausible deniability. There is no universe that I would understand that the Israelis did not tell or warn the Americans. Mr. President, we're going to go off and bomb the South Pars gas field. I hope you're okay with that. They would have known. It's just that Trump doesn't want to be seen with his hands all over it, so he can push it back onto the Israelis. Don't forget, the Israelis and the Americans are fighting two different wars as well. So to add to the complex nature of things, Bibi Netanyahu, for all his political life since the Iranian Revolution, has always claimed that Iran was 5 minutes away from a nuclear device.
Yes.
It's all crap.
Yes.
But that was his thing. Now, he's now had his greatest ambition fulfilled. He's now engaging in a quote-unquote regime change operation against Iran. That was Netanyahu's thing, right? Did the Israelis need this? Well, look, Israel's been in a state of war since 2023, since October 7. It's a small state. Wars are expensive. Yeah. There have been a lot of civilians taken out of the civilian economy, those who are reservists, and put into uniform and gone off to Gaza and now are heading off into southern Lebanon as well.
Who's doing the work?
Well, you have to wonder who's subsidising the Israeli state. There's only one answer that I have. Yeah. But, really, who is going to be keeping the wheels of industry in motion while everyone is in uniform fighting wars left, right and centre? Well,
Trump apparently is going to Congress to ask for $200 billion to continue the war. Now, I don't know. I mean, it seems like a lot of money, but maybe not if you say it quickly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let me see. I think the latest estimates are that we've spent close on $20 billion just in 20 days of conflict.
We're in the wrong business.
Well, the arms business is good business if you can get into it, for sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the Americans have spent almost $20 billion on the campaign thus far, and we burn through these sophisticated weapons so fast. I mean, the Patriot 3 missiles that are the primary weapons that defend the Gulf states, for instance, they're being shot off left, right and centre. And sometimes, or actually more often than not, 2 or 3 of those missiles have to go after one incoming Iranian missile to guarantee a hit. So each of those missiles at the average cost of about $5 million apiece to shoot down a much cheaper Iranian drone or ballistic missile. The economic war is being played out not only by the destruction of the oil and gas fields, but also just on the destruction of military hardware alone, because we put so much stock in high technology. That's expensive gear. We're not fighting World War II here.
Couldn't we come up with some sort of bomb, a sleeping pill kind of thing? So you just drop one bomb and the entire population goes to sleep.
A neutron.
And then
you've got them already, haven't they?
and you come in and...
Gentlemen, let me tell you a story. It's a quick one, but it feeds into what Jeremy's just said. back, I think, sometime in the late 50s or early 1960s, the CIA was running a program that looked to see whether they could create a gay bomb.
A gay bomb?
A gay bomb. And the reason is that...
It's already here.
Yeah, maybe someone threw it at Australia, I don't know. But anyway, the gay bomb's notion was that they would throw the bomb onto a populated area and... You know, same-sex couples would fall in lust with each other so fast and so hard that they, pardon the pun, that they would forget about the war and, you know, basically surrender to their lustful urges. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, yes, let's create a bomb that everyone just falls asleep and goes.
Well, what happened to that idea?
Well, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work, no.
They dropped it on Taylor Square in Sydney.
Which is the bomb that can be dropped and it eliminates people but not buildings?
Oh, the neutron bomb.
Neutron bomb, is it?
Yeah, no, they still have those.
Yeah, well, that'd work.
Yeah, but there's the little problem of radiation.
None of the classic cars would be destroyed in that case.
That's true.
Don't do
that.
How many classic cars do you think that Iran has?
Well, I've heard there's a lot of stuff down that way, but we won't start on that.
Oh, okay.
Especially in the Emirates.
In the Emirates for sure.
More Lambos and so on, then you could check a stick at, as it were.
Yeah. Wouldn't you think the CIA would come up with some better way of winning this war or something?
No, because this isn't fought by this war is instituted by a political leadership who doesn't understand the first thing about war, and then it's led by a guy who's in charge of the Pentagon who really has just a fixation with roids or whatever, steroids. Pete Hegseth is not what you would consider a stalwart American Secretary of War. I hate using that term. I'm so much more comfortable with defense. But anyway, he is what he is, but he doesn't seem to have what it takes to lead the country. He himself has been putting out so many contradictory statements over the last week as to what the whole mission's all about, what the end game is, what this is about. And when challenged by the journalists, he just shrugs his shoulders and walks off. I mean, that's not what you would consider a leader. In many ways, he's very cowardly in the way that he presents himself. If you're so convinced of your beliefs, stand your ground, make your argument, make your case, win the argument. He doesn't do that.
No. He was a personal choice of Trump, I gather.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's a lackey. And most people in the Trump cabinet obey the Great One and will not step out of line. And those that fall into a bit of trouble, well, they then become the newest member of the what is Trump? Well, what is Kirsty Noem now in charge of, the Latin American Shield or some? It's like the Justice League for Latin Americans or something. I don't know.
The Justice League for Latin America. I love it. What's happened to Donald's peace board?
Oh, he's bored of peace.
It's $1 million. No, $1 billion.
I meant that as a second. He's bored of peace.
Bored of peace.
He's just bored, like a big yawn for him. And many of the people who signed up to the Board of Peace are the very countries that were being attacked by Iran. Now,
pretty motley crew they were when they came on television. You cast your eye over the whole group. And you think to yourself, what a bunch of cutthroats, despots, and ne'er-do-wells. There was nobody there from any country of any note.
Well, I mean, a lot of the Gulf states, and those Gulf states are the Gulf states that are critical to the international economy. What would be really interesting, and having worked for the UAE government, I would love to be a fly on the wall right now to see what my former boss, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan thinks about all of this. He's a very wise leader. For someone in that part of the world, he's probably one of the more forward-thinking guys. But in the sense that the UAE has been hit more often than Israel, you kind of think he might have an opinion that is a little bit negatively disposed toward the war, I would imagine. But I don't know.
I think the whole lot of them are a bunch of goat herders that struck oil straight out of the Clampets. Remember that TV show?
Texas Tea?
Well, look, I don't know. Did anyone anticipate, though, that Iran would shoot off a missile into Saudi Arabia and into Qatar and they were going after American bases, I take it, but surely you can't just sit there and randomly fire rockets at your neighbours and expect to get away with it?
There's nothing random about this at all. This is all part of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' plan. We tend to look at our enemies as though they're knuckle-dragging Neanderthals with not a brain cell between the bunch of them, and we always tend to overestimate our capacities because our military technology is just so... What's the American word for it? Exquisite. We've got exquisite satellites giving us a god's eye view of the ground. We've got Israeli intelligence who have thoroughly penetrated the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps structure and so delivers those beautiful targeted assassinations everywhere. We've got this very big idea of us, and we always undermine what the enemy brings to the table. That's, apart from truth, that's the other victim of war. If you have to fight because you have to, first and foremost. Don't fight because you think it's a good idea. That's the problem with this war, number one problem. Then if you are going to have to fight a war, come up with an excuse. As bad as George W. Bush was, and, apart from the Trump administration, he'd be the second worst president in living memory. He at least made a case for war. It was not a good case. It was a pretty crap case. But he made the case and he brought Congress with him. Trump did none of that because his autocratic tendencies tend to, I feel like it. I got up today, I had my Wheat Bix, my Big Mac, and now I feel like bombing someone. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
Sadly, it is.
There's a theme in there, though. Iraq was weapons of mass destruction. Iran is nuclear bombs.
Yes.
So weapons of mass destruction.
Indeed. There is a continuity in all of this. And look, Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, has done a great job trying to monsterize the Iranians. The Iranians were a threat. Let's not curry favour with the Iranians too much. They were a threat, but they were a contained threat. Like Saddam Hussein was a contained threat. Now, with a contained threat, you always have the option to remove the regime through military force. You always have the option to go to war with a country that you think is weakened. But you see, the fatal trap of that mentality was that in 1980, Saddam Hussein, in his inner sanctum, looked at what happened to his neighbour through the Iranian Revolution, and he saw Ayatollah Khomeini, much larger country than Iraq, and he said, you know what, they're a bunch of weak, nondescript entity. I've got border problems that I need to solve with Iran. I'm going to invade Iran. And he thought that he would just be able to, drive his forces all the way to Tehran and dictate terms to the Ayatollahs. Well, that turned out to be an 8-year-long war with over 1 million casualties. I also see a sort of similar kind of attitude with Iran, with Israel and America. They've got this, we'll impose peace through our superior firepower. Okay, go ahead. The enemy always gets a vote. And, there's an old military saying, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. No plan. Doesn't matter how well laid out it is. Doesn't matter how good your technology is. The enemy always gets a vote. Iran had played this to a T, and they're going nowhere. Not for at least another 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a couple of months.
Can you stay with us for a while?
Little bit longer, yes.
A little bit longer. Dr. John Bruni is with us, ladies and gentlemen. JeremyCordeaux.com is the station you're listening to all over the world.
You're listening to the Court of Public Opinion with Jeremy Cordeaux, where the time is 10 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time.
Hey! What's the weather for the weekend gonna be? Will it be hot, cold, rain, snow?
And the weather today in Adelaide, it will be a partly cloudy day.
You may not find us on your TV, because in case you did not know, we're being brought to you by, brought to you by RADI.
And a lovely Friday it is too, ladies and gentlemen. March the 20th. March the 20th. Interesting birthdays today. We'll get to that later. We've got a cyclone up north, don't we? Cyclone. Yeah, there was another one. 2006. Cyclone Larry makes landfall in eastern Australia. But we're having fewer of them, but they seem to be a little bit more fierce. John Bruni's still with us. Professor Ian Plimer is with us in a couple of seconds. And Pauline Hanson's going to drop by. I don't think that was the original version of that, the Happy Whistler, I think it's called. But it's a nice version. Boots Randolph is his name. Professor Plimer, are you well, sir?
Yes, I am well.
You look well.
Well, I've been to Broken Hill. I've upgraded my lead levels in the blood. I'm back to normal.
Do you ever check, by the way?
I get a check quite regularly. And I did try to lead myself once because I know how you get leaded, and that's because you're dirty. You don't wash your hands, you don't wash your face, and you ingest lead minerals with your food. Yeah. And the only exception would be someone who's welding and creates a bit of vapour of lead and breathes that in. Now, I've tried to lead myself a number of times. I haven't managed to do it, but you drink a lot of calcium in milk, and that's a way of cleaning it up. My house in Broken Hill is built on the ore body. So the lower rocks, this was built in 1888, and the lower rocks that they collected have got a lot of lead and zinc in them, and I checked it. 16.9% was the highest amount of lead I had in the rocks in the bottom part of the stone walls. Then they had to go a bit further away to get rocks, and these are high in zinc. Then I had to get a bit further away, and these are what used to be sedimentary rocks. So I've got a complete geological sequence in the stone from the bottom floor of the house, what's a two-storey place, to the top floor. And this was built as a steam generating plant in 1888 for generating steam. I've still got the concrete footings for the boilers, and it had steam to run king shaft, and they needed steam to drive the winders. So I've got a historical house. I had to do something very important. My Australian flag on the flagpole was a bit tattered, so I had to replace it. So I was up there for, when did I go? Sunday, and came back Wednesday night.
What's it made of, the house? I mean, not the flag.
Stone.
Okay.
Yeah. Stone from immediately around it. So it's
beautiful. Oh, that's beautiful. I see the Australian publishers, they publish this rich list every year, and it was out today, apparently. Your boss made the top spot?
I think she'll be there for quite a while.
I think so too.
We have some magnificent ventures on the go. I'll be in the US and Japan, and US next week and Japan the week after. And even though the iron ore price is not at a record high, we've been cutting our costs. We've been looking at how we can do things better all the time. We're looking at our energy costs especially. We've gone from having an automated mine to an AI mine. And
what's an AI mine?
Well, it's the artificial intelligence. So it actually monitors all the numbers you get and works out better ways of maybe loading a train or better ways of or better times to send the train down to the coast on our 344-kilometre railway line. So we're using artificial intelligence.
You have a train set all your own.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, well, it's a big one.
Very own train.
It's a big one. It carries 200,000 tonnes. And so we have our own internal artificial intelligence group who are basically looking at snipping a couple of cents here and a couple of cents here. You know, for example, if we take 10 cents a tonne off production of our ore, we produce 100 million tonnes a year. That's a serious amount of money you save that goes straight to the bottom line because you've already had all your costs taken out.
Somebody else who's watching the bottom line is this government, because they're going to say that because of the war situation we have, you're getting windfall profits. We have to have that. We want a bit of that.
Well, they're going to hit us with death duties. They're going to hit us with everything they can because they haven't operated like a business. And when times are tough in a business, you cut their costs. They've been overspending. Yeah. They've run up $1 trillion worth of debt. And in my view, they're a bit slow. They're not very bright. Most of the cabinet spent an hour and a half watching 60 Minutes. That's how slow they are.
Well, I would have thought it could be more like Four Corners and 7:30 and stuff like that.
No, but you don't get a joke out of that.
No. Well, you didn't happen to see the 7:30 report last night, did you?
You've got to be joking. I haven't watched the ABC for 25 years.
Well,
and I only watch commercial stations if the footy's on. The rest of the time it's Sky or nothing.
Yeah, well, the Minister for, what was she? Catherine,
Madeline
King.
Ballarat, yeah.
Well, she was asked about her guarantees that Australians would always be provided with fuel. Fuel will always be there. And Sarah Ferguson said, well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to get it to them? And she said, well, I imagine we're going to put it on trucks and deliver it. Straight-faced.
Yeah.
Strange, absolutely strange. And you look back on some of the history of these people as to what they did before politics, and they've done nothing.
It's a bit scary. Well, most of them have never had a job.
No, I know.
And what you don't hear is Australia is an exporter of crude oil. Yet we have a shortage of crude oil. And we export crude oil from the Northwest Shelf, which is partly comes as oil production, but partly as condensate from gas production. And we export it because we used to have a refinery at Kwinana, which used to refine it.
How did we let ourselves get in a situation like this?
I think we've been too comfortable. We've been able to just drift along, and no one has been strategically planning for what's going to happen in 5, 10, 50 years' time. And our energy policy has been really killed off by people chasing wind and solar for electricity generation, and we've totally neglected looking at the long-term energy mix that we need for Australia.
Yeah. So where's the media and where's the opposition?
Well, the media are not too bright either.
Well,
and secondly, a very large number of journalists now are cut from a different cloth than from previous times. In previous times, people went in and maybe were an office boy for a while, and then worked their way up and became a journalist, and they got to know how the system worked. And now we have people who have degrees in journalism, whatever that is, and they are basically seeing this as a mechanism of promoting their own activism. We now no longer have fearless independent journalism. We have activists who are interviewing you, and the type of question they ask, the way in which it's framed, the way in which various shots are cut, is showing that it's activism.
Well, I don't know exactly what we can do about it. It's going to take some major surgery or a miracle, or maybe this lady, our next guest, she's going to be possibly able to do it. Her name is Pauline Hanson, and she'll be with us in a second. Pauline is just shaking hands with everybody because everybody wants to shake hands with her. And the professor is doing better than that. He's getting a kiss. Come and sit down, Pauline, and we'll get you a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or anything that you would like. Are you faring well, enjoying the campaign?
Fine. No worries.
How's it going?
Absolutely fantastic.
I've noticed.
On the ground, it's unbelievable, the support that we're getting. Doesn't matter whether I go to a shopping centre, in the lift, or, and the streets. I get pulled up, the streets, all out, the cars, the windows, the buses, everything.
Oh, I'll bet you do.
People have had a bloody gutful, haven't they?
They have.
Yeah.
They have.
You've got to find a way to sort of say to people as they come up and want to shake your hand and they like the common sense that you speak. You've got to find some way of saying, now, look, thank you for the support, but this is great here, but I need it in the voting booth. You've got to remember.
They are. They
Good,
are.
good.
All the time, just
Follow through.
Because we walked with Chris Kenny the other day through the mall of all places, So, but the number of people said, "No, already voted for you. No, voted for you." And Chris said, "Are you going to vote for it?" Already have. Already voted for her.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to vote for
We're
you.
getting that. Yeah. No, it's really there's an undercurrent movement that's happening, and I've been feeling it before I came here to South Australia. And this has really cemented my feelings towards it because it is important people know how the opportunity to vote at the ballot box, and that's coming through. So if you read the social media, everything like that, people saying, get behind her in South Australia, we need this, we've got to get behind One Nation. So it's very strong, Jeremy. I think that this is going to be the test case for One Nation and getting Corey in there, and I believe they could pick up 3 seats in the upper house. And we do that, and even a lower house seat. They're looking at the lower house seat. I can't think of his name. What's his name?
You've got somebody in every seat, though, haven't you?
Yeah.
And Carlos is pretty impressive in my view, and he's number 2 on the upper house.
Very impressive.
And
Carlos has driven it.
how are you going training people up with how to use preferences? Because that, to me, is the biggest battle.
The preference system in South Australia is totally different. People can put a 1 in the box only. So what we're doing is just saying, vote One Nation 1. You fill out your preferences how you want it to flow. All right? So we're not directing to either Liberal or Labor. In the upper house, there is a saving grace. There is a saving grace. I think it's in the lower house. So if people vote a 1, don't fill it out, then it flows. We've put it directed half the votes to Liberal, half the votes to Labor. Right?
Well, how do you want us to vote to get you the maximum bang?
Just make sure you do number 1 for One Nation.
Yeah.
Read the ballot paper and just put number 1. If you put number 1 for One Nation, that's it. Your vote sticks in the primary vote.
And you don't worry about anything else, just number 1, One Nation.
Number 1.
Do you find, as you walk around, do you find that there is one single issue that people have in the front of their mind, closer to their heart?
If you go into rural and regional areas, it's more health. Health is a big issue because they can't get the services. They don't have the specialists, so people have to travel from Mount Gambier, Maitland, Cooper Pedy, all these places to get, health care. Maternity hospitals closing down, so people have to travel to Adelaide to get the services that they need. Cost of living is also very important to people, and the rising cost of housing. So it's in the state issue. It's, I'd say, mainly health, but people also fed up with the educational system, the work that's going on in our educational system.
You have a royal cup in front of you, by the way.
So it's a number of things, Jeremy, that people... and people get confused. They don't understand what's between state and federal politics, right? So they don't understand. So what's happening federally, they sort of don't realise the difference between state and federal.
Well, there's only so much you can do from the point of view of the state. But we came up with this thing called Mecca. And I could see it on hats and all of that sort of thing. And it just simply short for, make electricity cheap again.
Yeah.
Now, it only affects you when you open that envelope, and you mightn't do that. You might get the bill once a month or once a quarter. But when you realise that the cost of electricity, in the face of being told that we were going to have cheaper electricity, we have demonstrably the most expensive electricity probably in the world, but certainly in our history, and they're getting away with it. Oh, renewables are cheaper. No, they're not.
Thanks, Caroline, for the coffee. But did you hear today the announcement is that electricity is going to be reduced in New South Wales by 10%. You've got other states 8% that they reduce electricity. My concern, I don't believe that, because I believe that they're doing a deal behind the scenes with the retailers and services of the electricity to actually pay them behind the scenes, because they know that he can't give any more money at the next budget in giving the money directly to the consumers, because he'll be ridiculed by the RBA, but is driving up inflation, cost of living.
Yes.
No one is going to reduce their electricity prices by 10%. So I believe that they've done a deal behind the bloody scenes to pay
Buying them off.
Yeah,
But
these
why-
electricity companies to reduce
Why
it.
are they wedded to a philosophy, a policy that is flawed like that?
Because they've poured too much money into it. We're estimating probably 50 to 60 billion. I couldn't find out the cost of it. So with all the infrastructure and all these agreements that are being put into place now, they can't pull out of it. They'll have egg on their face, the amount of money that's been poured into it to go ahead with this. These transmission
my money.
lines. I know, but they won't do it. Bowen won't do it.
Professor, what sort of money do you think we're talking for this excursion into the unknown of renewables?
Well, it's got to be very high. I opened an email this morning from my electricity provider for my quarterly power, $2,089.49
For your quarterly power.
for
that's
quarterly
your pay-
electricity.
Yeah.
The gas comes as a separate bill. Now, my wife's not very well, so we do use a lot of power to keep certain parts of the house cool.
What used it to be? What was it before?
In the hundreds.
Yes. It's extraordinary. I mean, it's enough to have people out marching on the streets.
Well, they should be.
Yeah, but we're complacent, or we are, I don't know what we are, plain stupid.
I think that's
she'll be
half
right.
of our problem, is it's a she'll be right
Sorry,
mentality.
people didn't know where to go because they're both on the same page. And that's why now, because with One Nation, they have someone else to... OK, if use this as a protest party, I don't think we are. I think we have the policies there. It is a protest against the major political parties that have done nothing but drive this country into the ground. And that's why people are turning to us. And I
That's
do have
exactly
the
right.
policies. And I do have the policies to make a difference. And the trouble with me is we've worked together for a long time. I haven't changed my consistency.
No, you have
of
never
it.
changed.
And I've seen a lot of this coming for a long time, and that's why people now, they may not always agree with me, that's what they say to me, but they said, we know you've got this country at heart and the people there, and what I'm picking up is that people trust me. They know, they may not agree with me, but they trust me, and I'm not going to sway in the wind whichever way it goes.
Yeah, you know, they have this law in Wales now where it is against the law for a politician to stand up in the Parliament and tell a lie. No glossing, no lying.
Do they have any politicians left?
Not in jail, you mean? No, apparently they are going to give it a go.
I love it.
I've been saying to James this week, politicians are not held to account. All that happens is at election time, and of course people forget. What I'd like to set up is a separate independent board so that these ministers that make these decisions and cost billions of dollars to the taxpayers must be made accountable, and the bureaucrats, so that they then will lose their portfolios, have to go to the back bench. You can't get rid of them out of Parliament. They've been elected duly by the people.
Yeah.
But they must lose their portfolios and taken out of that position, but they can't do any more damage. The bureaucrats need a full review of what they get paid, $600,000, $900,000 million. That needs to be reviewed, put them on a base salary and put them on a bonus of where they do...
Pauline, I'm very happy to chair that committee, and I will get paid the same as Donald Trump does for being president.
That's
and
where
that's
I
$1.
want to take it. That's what I want to put to people.
Yeah.
If they're in the real world as CEOs, they'd lose their bloody jobs.
Of course they
That's
would,
what
and there
they
were no
should.
consequences
And
for a
no
stuffer.
one's ever thought about doing this before.
I think it's a great
Put
idea.
it to the
Yeah.
people.
You know, we are the most, when I say most governed, we have more public servants per head of population than any other country in the world.
2.5 million.
Unbelievable.
Jeremy, they're not servants.
Okay.
They
no,
they
like
actually
masters.
drive the agenda A lot of them are activists, politicians, especially in the lower house. They've got a short term. The bureaucrats are there forever. So they drive the whole show.
Mm.
Yeah.
And we've discussed it here when I do my normal Friday with Jeremy. I have an idea that we should decentralise the bureaucracy. So we send the Department of Aboriginal Affairs to Halls Creek.
That'd be great.
And they, work 2
agree.
shifts a day, so they've got to
Always said
walk home at night at midnight. Try that one on. Department of Infrastructure at Rabbit Flat in Northern Territory. Why? Because there's no infrastructure. Let them have a taste of what it's like in rural and regional Australia. Treasury at Gladstone, Finance at Port Hedland. That's where we make our money, and on it goes.
Big fan Canberra.
Yeah.
Well, turn it back to what it was, a perfectly good sheep paddock.
I totally agree with you. That was my policy in 1996. Came there. Decentralised government.
And it would serve another purpose, is that the precious bureaucrats would not want to move, so they'd resign. Terrific.
Mm.
So you can reduce the public service without having to go through the agony of sacking people.
What would you do with, there are so many damn things to ask you. What would you do with tax? We're being softened up at the moment by Jim. He's going to say, we because of this war, we need a reforming budget.
We are.
Reforming means getting in every little socialist idea that they've been sitting on forever, getting that in and saying, well, this is good for us. This is. It's sort of like the recession we had to have. Mm-hmm. We're going to inflict this pain and this ideology because you need it. This is what you have to have.
We are going to work on. I'm not a professional in all these areas whatsoever, but I go on basically.
You've run a business.
Correct. I was about to say that I've run a business most of my life.
Yeah.
Different businesses that I've had. We are highly overtaxed, and what people pay in tax in this country is ridiculous. And even what we got left in our pocket after PAYE tax is taken out, we're paying GST tax on top of that again. So
fuel tax.
Even with our superannuation, it's again, it's more and more tax all the time.
Don't forget the windfall tax, which is about to be announced.
Yeah. So I am going to tackle taxation. I've got a few things going through my head, but I'm going to talk. I'm bringing on board a person who will be standing for South Australia. I'm not going to tell you who it is at this stage. It may be announced next week. Mm-hmm. Who has the background to do and can speak with authority on this. So things that I don't know about, I bring people around me who do.
Bless you. Sensible.
And that's the way I'll be doing it. I've already run it past him. And I'll be working with other professionals, and I've spoken to the IPA about this, and Adam Crichton was quite interested in where I was headed with my head with taxation. So I've got my ideas, but I want to talk to the professionals where we go with it.
Have you thought about income splitting?
That's part of our policy.
Excellent.
We released it the last election. The coalition now have taken it up. Matt Canavan's talking about it. So income splitting, if you've, just a case point, and I'd only do income splitting if you have at least one dependent child at home.
Yes.
Not for people who don't have dependent children. Otherwise, it's going to be too much of a cost to the taxpayer to introduce. And if you do income splitting, the figures that they've come up with, it's about $68 billion a year. We can't afford that. But if you have at least a dependent child, so if you got the splitting $120,000 for someone between husband and wife, that's going to be a saving of $10,000 a year to that household. Now, a lot of women would dearly love to stay home, but just to get that 8-10 hours work a week would actually pay them, for a few little bits and extra bits and pieces. They more likely will stay home under this income splitting. You're going to alleviate the pressure of the childcare,
which is very expensive.
Now at $16 billion a year. That's what it's costing us. I think it needs a full investigation into that as well, where the money's going.
They want to get the children as young as possible, and then
they stop brainwashing them.
Yeah. The earlier the better.
Well, if you look at the NDIS, half of the beneficiaries of the NDIS are under 18 years old, and this means that we, the taxpayer, are going to be paying for a whole lifetime of welfare. That to me is too much. The other thing that worries me, and I'm expressing my age now, is the potential of death duties. to raise monies. And when I look at the average age around this table, I think we all should be concerned about it, especially you, sir.
Thanks, Onselen.
They're basically doing that in superannuation.
Of course they are.
If you don't get your money out of superannuation before you die, they're taxing that anyway as a death duties, and that's where they're headed. The Greens are definitely headed towards that way, and so is the Labor Party. So that's what they've got on the agenda. I'm totally opposed to it. You've been taxed all your life. If you've actually accumulated that, that's yours. It doesn't belong to the government's.
Here's a thought. Rather than have the RBA increase if they want to do something about inflation, and I guess they've got to, instead of increasing the mortgage payment that we make, the interest rate, why not temporarily increase the compulsory superannuation? I think it's 11% now?
It's 12%.
12%? Well, just temporarily bring it up to, say, 15. It does the same thing. It takes money out of circulation, but it means that you get that money back in the end.
You know what, you can't force more people to lose their money into superannuation. It's their money. These people are struggling, and they need their money now in their pocket to actually...
But rather than give it to the bank because of a higher mortgage... If you give it to yourself, at least you get it back.
Jeremy, I think there's other ways, and we need to boost productivity in the country. We've been stifled with that much red tape, green tape and black tape. This is why there's no predictability in this country, stability whatsoever, even in our mining industry, right across the board. We're not getting investment in Australia. Businesses, do you know it takes 36... licences in a cafe in Victoria.
36.
Just
to have a cafe.
Just a tuna.
And Pauline, to build our Roy Hill mine, we needed 4,950 approvals from local, state, federal, and Aboriginal organisations. So no wonder people look overseas say, I can do better.
This is where we need to go with it, Jeremy. That's what I intend to do.
Can you strip back all this stuff?
Of course you can. It's all the regulations. You don't need to. For me, I've got a food van. I've got a food van, so I travel around and food van. Do the licence in Brisbane. This is stainless steel, huge, fantastic, brand new van. Do you know on the licence in Brisbane, I can't cut up a lettuce or a tomato in that food van.
Why?
Because it's health regulations. It's all stainless steel, sinks and everything in it. And I can't cut up a bloody lettuce or a tomato. Go figure.
It's someone driving a desk that has been paid a fortune to come up with that brilliant idea, and there are no consequences for that decision by a bureaucrat.
Yeah. See, this is where I tackle it and create productivity. Even your farming sector is stifled what ground they can actually plough. If it's been left idle for 5 years or more, you can't do anything with it. You've got to leave it. It's got to go back to nature. This is happening right across the board here in Australia.
No, it's bizarre. In Victoria, they've got their own unique set of problems. They have a thing called cultural burning. Speaking about the land, cultural burning. They have to pay $28,000 a hectare for the Aboriginals to come along and burn this particular piece of land. The CFS or the CFA charge $300 to do exactly the same thing. Yeah. But who gets the work and the money? The Aboriginals. Now, what about the taxpayer?
Some of these groups, they get it. Look, the Aboriginals too, and I had them come up to me at Maitland, this Aboriginal woman, and I had them at Port Lincoln. Yeah. These two women there came up to me, embraced me and said, we love you. We're actually supporting you. These Aboriginal people have been used as pawns all this time, and they're getting
creeping
nothing
communism.
back from it, and they're sick and tired of it, and that's why they're turning towards me.
Yeah, you know that tomorrow we've got the election here, but we've actually got 2 elections tomorrow. Did you know that?
No.
Well, there is a parallel Aboriginal parliament. Yes, they lost the vote for a voice federally, but they are introducing through the back door exactly the same thing.
As in Victoria.
Yep. So the Premier...
We're going to repeal it. One Nation won't stand for it. We'll get rid of it.
And apparently these people on this parallel government are paid $200,000 a year. But they found it difficult to find people to do it. They really did.
Do what, Jeremy?
Well, that's
they do
it.
nothing. It's name only.
No.
And I think here in South Australia, you're lucky to get double digits for people to actually go and vote on anything to do with the Aboriginal
Yes, exactly.
industry. Right? There's only about 7% that actually turn out, if that.
No.
To come vote, and in Victoria it's the same.
Well, it's not, as you say, it's not the Aboriginal people, the men and women. It's the industry. And I don't know who runs the industry. I suspect probably white bureaucrats. I don't know.
You've forgotten one more adjective, white bureaucrats.
Yeah. I still don't know how we allowed all of this to happen. I really don't.
I think we're too comfortable and too wealthy.
Yep. Dr. John.
You need a microphone.
Yeah. So, are we recording or we're just having a chat?
No, we're on air. And
This is live.
This is live.
You didn't tell me that. It's what you do all the time. All you men just keep me in the dark all the time. What's going
Jeremy,
on?
don't blame
Right.
me.
Okay.
You're a natural. You don't need to be primed or
If it's any
prompted.
consolation, he did the same to me on the first interview. That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well,
on this regular Friday program, and halfway through it, I realised, hang on a tick, this is going to end.
Well, I was wondering, when are we going to get started?
and you know the wonderful. It's different and it's informal because it can't really
I think
be.
it's wonderful. I've got my cup of tea and a cup of coffee. It's lovely.
Some carbs there if you want to have them.
Yeah.
4 million listeners can't be wrong.
That's right.
4 million.
Really?
Yes, and I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know how they.
congratulations.
I don't know how they found us. I'm just grateful and happy that they did.
Wonderful.
Okay.
So where were we?
If I may, I have to ask one question, which I think it's going to be controversial. We have $4.5 trillion in superannuation just sitting there, accumulating wealth for our retirees, and that's great. But that's a lot of money just to be sitting there. What is your view of using a small percentage of that money to kickstart something with regard to economic activity that we can, move forward, with some confidence?
That's the word that you say, with confidence. Do I have confidence in the governments that we have these days to actually make sure that money is spent wisely and, in the best place? And I don't. Sorry, I don't.
Don't blame you.
So anyway, I can't gamble with people's monies, and it does belong to the people out there. But yes, we should utilise the money. We're not utilising enough investment in Australia, so we're about to lose Japan. Okay, that's looking to the USA now for gas and for oil, because there's no stability in our nation anymore. They want to do business with us because we're a stable nation and we don't have wars here. But they're being driven away constantly all the time with these, environmental, impact and everything, this safeguard mechanisms and everything else that goes with it. And we're losing these investors in Australia. We need to have those investors felt, if we ran this country more like a business, which it should be run, instead of deterring it. And this has been, and I believe it's been done purposely, they don't want us to use our resources here. They want to leave it in the ground. That's the Greens, that's the Labor Party, and the Coalition have headed down this path for a long time as well. They're all to blame for it. Yeah. Now, people have to realise that you've got about 415, correct me if I'm wrong here, Ian, I think that our resources bring in around about $415 billion a year into the country. Now, our budget in a year is around about $780, $800 billion a year. So you can imagine that's more than half what we need to run this country on. We cannot afford to lose that. We're the most resource-rich country, or one of them, in the world, and we don't utilise our resources. We've got to a stage now, we're now building ports in Victoria to import gas.
And in Victoria, you've got the Wombat gas field, which has got 5 wells. I've seen them all flare, and there's a compressor station 2 kilometres away. They're not allowed to develop that gas field. So that's absolutely nuts. And apropos of superannuation, John, which you were talking about, a lot of the super funds go for the best returns, and quite often a better return is to invest in an apartment block in Dresden in Germany rather than invest in Australia. So Australia's not a place where you would invest.
Here from Canada, we have investors in their superannuation funds
the schools,
in Canada
the
that
teachers'
actually
funds,
invest in Australia. But my concern is I think the unions have got too much of a hold in this country with their own banks and superannuation funds that they're working hand in hand with the government of what policies, where to invest the money. I think there has to be more of a separation of powers between the unions and the Labor Party, that investments have to be made in the best interest for Australia and the return on the monies for the people. I've got no problem with it, but I don't trust these politicians and the bureaucrats that we've had, that the people won't end up the ones worse off out of this. So I'd go very steady with that.
Okay. Don't you think, though, that when Keating came up with the universal superannuation idea, that in the back of his mind was this huge juggernaut that would fund the trade union movement and therefore the Labor Party?
That's exactly what's happened with it, hasn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Is that the same Paul Keating that when my wife and I had 3 kids and were paying a mortgage, we're paying 17.9%? Is that the same Keating?
It's the same one. Yes. And if you had a business and a business loan at the bank, it would be about 22%.
Oh, spare me.
Unions have got a stranglehold in this country. And I'm hearing it from businesses all the time, and especially what we see, what's happening in Victoria with the CFMEU, have now got, corruption of tune of $15 billion.
What would you do with them?
We did have the laws. We worked closely with the coalition government in 2016 when I first went back to Parliament again. So we worked closely with them, the ABCC, Australian Building and Construction Industry. So I sat down and spoke, and I got a clear understanding of it. I worked with the Master Builders Association, the independent, builders and ones, and I worked with the unions as well to get a fair outcome right across the board. It worked well. They were reined in. They were holding these, a small business person, he turned up on the site to actually want to deliver his concrete. You can't, concrete goes off. You can't have, you know what? He had to hand over $5,000 cash to the unions before you actually would allow him to deliver the concrete. Yeah. If you didn't, his concrete would go off. The bullying and the thuggery that goes on has to stop. They did that under the ABCC. Labor Party get in, they got rid of it completely altogether.
So they took the cop on the beat and got rid of him and said,
correct.
Go your merry way, the CFMEU.
So on building sites now, what they happen if the unions don't like it, so what they do now is go in and throw toilet rolls down the loos, block it up. Oh, there's a work health and safety issue here, so we can't work. Down the tools.
No, it's unbelievable. I'll tell you a little story. I was working for 5KA going back, maybe 15, 20 years. And I haven't changed my views about politics. And I was doing a talk show, and it was obvious to the Labor Party that I wasn't a mate or a fellow traveller. And the radio station was having a new station built. They were moving from Franklin Street to Curry Street. And the union, it would have been the Builders Labourers Federation back then. And they simply said to the station, the job's black. Get rid of him or you don't get your building.
Yeah.
And there was a very nice fellow who went to the union and paid them off. But they wouldn't. It was just about, get rid of him. We'll stop building your building or give us money.
Yeah. I've got, since being in South Australia here, I had an organisation to do with businessman, Rains, here in the state.
Yes.
He's been told that by the unions he has to increase their pay by 60%, otherwise he's going to go under. He's just beside himself, doesn't know what to do. So the threats that comes from the unions, that's happening here in your state,
yes,
and he doesn't know what to do. I'm not against unions, so please understand me what I say here. Unions have played a very important role in Australia to ensure that workers weren't ripped off.
But these aren't unions, these are thugs.
They are
standover men.
It's gone to one extreme to the other, and unions should not control the government or run the country, and that's exactly what they're doing. So we need to rein them in fully. But the courts also have to deal with it. And you have to have an independent body from the government, separation of powers, to deal with the unions and get rid of the thuggery that's going on. And stop, they should not be allowing to hold the businesses to ransom. I'm very adamant on this, and we need to get back to some common sense. And when unions, I speak to a lot of general practitioners and different ones. They're struggling to make a living. after 8 years of, going through getting their degrees and everything like that, do you know that not the lollipop, the traffic controller?
Yes.
Traffic controller in Queensland,
Yep.
working on the site in the city?
Yep.
They paid between $170,000 to $190,000
To stop and
as a traffic controller on a
Nice and orange.
building in the heart of Brisbane.
Well, that's just a rip-off.
Where the hell has this got us? There has to be, definitions between jobs. And then I have people who are working in nursing homes. They're flat out getting their $24 an hour or something like that, even hairdressers and different ones. These people have done their trades, the work they do. I do. It just blows my mind to see what these people are getting paid.
Do you believe... Sorry. John, go ahead.
Sorry, I haven't stopped talking.
No, keep talking.
I just sadly I have to depart in a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to get one question in. I'm very strong on national security and defence and those kind of issues. Of course, we've got our AUKUS submarine boats being built here in Adelaide. I mean, what does One Nation represent in terms of national security? And how do you see Australia's position in the world when now very clearly our old alliance frameworks seem to be fraying, not for any problem that Australia's put forward, but because the American president is very chaotic in terms of what he's delivering?
I like Donald Trump, and I like the message he's putting out to the rest of the world. He's very strong in protecting his own country. He's got investment back in the country, his defence. And I'll tell you what, you name any other country in the world that is actually going to come to our defence or is going to help Australia if we're actually invaded or taken over or attempted to by China. Who are we going to turn to? And that's the United States, always have done. Do you think that we're going to rely on New Zealand? Do you think that we can rely on ourselves? We've got 3 days. That's about it. 3 days of actually being able to defend ourselves.
Do you know, Pauline...
more, though.
Of course we can do more. I've already announced we should actually put our defence budget up to 5% of GDP.
Right.
We have to do that.
Yeah.
We have to start being seen that we want to protect our own country, our own sovereignty.
Good.
We've actually just been so lax about it.
Yeah.
We've actually thought, oh no, nothing will ever happen. I tell you what, wait and see whatever happens. No one's talking about China. China is intent on invading Taiwan. They want to take it over. It'll be on there. I think they're just waiting to see what happens with Russia, Ukraine, what happens with Iran. I fully back Israel and Trump of actually destroying the nuclear weapons in Iran at the moment because Iran, Russia, China and North Korea will all unite together. And that's my grave concern. Do I want people to go to war? No way in the wide world. But we must realise the fact that we cannot just sit here and do nothing. Building the subs, and I'm all for the AUKUS, when are we going to get delivered that? Probably late 40s. I went on the subs, the Collins class. I've done these programs with parliamentary programs. We can actually go with the Defence Force and we can do these parliamentary programs. 2018, I went over to Afghanistan before we pulled out. I've done Townsville Barracks up there of the Army. I've done the Air Force at Amberley. I've done the submarines, 2 days underwater. Western Australia, I've done the submarines. I've done the Border Force. To get myself across, working with the defence and see the issues that we have there. We have just kept it ticking over. Our defence personnel do not feel they're being looked after. They're not respected. They don't want to stay in. As soon as they get in, they're getting out of it. That tells you a lot.
Yes.
And I just don't feel it's been run properly. So what I want to see, I don't want to see lives lost. But we have to be a country that can be seen that we're going to take our security seriously.
It was announced this morning that we have one ship with a bit of luck that we could deploy. Our Navy consists of one seaworthy available ship.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
It's incredible.
Isn't it?
For a rich country.
We've allowed ourselves to fall into such disrepair.
Yeah, absolutely. Willingly.
Yeah.
You know, Pauline raised something which I think needs to be further enhanced here. You know, this country is run on a uniparty sort of framework. I mean, we've got Labor and Liberal pretty much aping each other through bipartisan policies that they put forward for foreign affairs, they put forward for defence, and so therefore we can't really get out of the madness very well. So, you know, Pauline, look, I wish you all the best of luck in terms of trying to put this stuff across, because I do agree with a lot of what you've said, not just on the defence matters, but also on the other things as well. So let's keep our fingers crossed you get over the line.
I just want people to clarify that about with Iran and Trump. We're dealing with a country that was building nuclear weapons. I'd rather destroy and get rid of the evil now, because I tell you what, it'd be best to deal with it there rather than having nuclear weapons can end up anywhere in the world, and you know the impact it will have on our country. So I'm a person, just don't sit back and wait. If you've got an issue, you've got a problem, okay, what's the best way to solve it and deal with that problem? And you know, Trump, he's put himself on the line there because he's lost his own citizens. He's got to answer to his own people. But if we didn't have Trump there standing up, who would we have? Where's France? Where's Germany? Where's Great Britain? Everyone's...
They'll be coming. They'll be coming. The war is going to get worse. They'll be...
Well, I hope they do, because we need to all stand united together. And Trump, his comments, yes, okay, he's out there sometimes, but at the end of the day, you got to look at what he's trying to do, is to get rid of the evil. And this evil with Islamism, and I will call it that, and the control and the caliphates and what they want to, and their tentacles throughout the world. We have to wake up to what is happening, even in our own country. I can say a lot more about it.
Yeah. What do we do about the High Court? Did you see the other day the High Court, see you, John? The High Court came down with a decision that these rapists and murderers and people who were illegally in this country, we found ourselves, we could not deport them, but we...
And they don't have to wear ankle bracelets.
No curfew, no, according to our own High
Jeremy,
Court.
the solution is ring up Mossad.
You're not suggesting assassination.
I'm not suggesting anything.
Ring Mossad, okay. But it seems like such a weird thing. You'd imagine that the very High Court of this country would be well and truly on the side of Australians and what was in the best interests of Australia.
Those days are gone, Jeremy. And I find that the people that have been appointed to our court system have become a bunch of bleeding hearts. And the leanings that they have, it's not in the best interest of the Australian people. But we see this happening all around the world. It's like this has been orchestrated. They talk about human rights, someone's human rights.
But do you sense that the pendulum is swinging, at least moving?
More to the left. Protect their rights on it, human rights.
I'm thinking in England there's a definite movement on where people...
Only because of Farage.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Only because of Farage. If Farage wasn't there, the movement wouldn't be on. But you've got this entrenched in the system, whether in your court system and in bureaucrats or politicians, it's entrenched, Jeremy. And nothing's going to change here. It's not going to happen overnight with One Nation either. No. It's going to have to be over a period of time to implement the policies. But any court system, and there's a separation of powers between the government's legislation and the court system. But courts and the decisions that they make have to be based on legislation, on law, right? The High Court is basically used for constitutional matters, so it's based on how they interpret the Constitution. Again, it's individual thought. So it's how they interpret the Constitution. So and that's the individual that you come
It's
down
a stacked deck. It reminds me a bit of the ABC. No, I'm sure there was a time when the only thing the ABC concentrated on was excellence. It was a meritocracy.
So you're showing you're very old.
Yes. Now, I go back to...
I mean, they're just appalling in my view.
Yeah.
We fund them.
Yeah, I know. I go back to the time when Sir Talbot Duck-Manton was the...
To Talcum Duck-Bottom.
You know the man I mean.
Yes, I do.
But it was basically a a brilliant, world-class institution that did nothing more than broadcast beautifully. And now, for some reason, I mean, I don't know whether you stack the management or you stack the producers or you stack the presenters. It is almost like a mouthpiece for Labor.
When I was, we had the shared balance power under the Turnbull government, Mitch Fifield, he was the Minister for Communications. Anyway, I had an agreement with the Liberal Party that the charter, the ABC charter, would actually include fair and balanced. He was supposed to foresee it and make sure that happened. Never did.
Fair and balanced.
They actually went back on their agreement with me
Yes,
for putting fair and balanced in the charter of the ABC. I tell people now, I want the ABC funding gone.
Right.
The only thing
How would you fund it? How would they fund it?
Subscription.
The
well,
only
why
way
not?
that we would do is keep the funding for rural and regional areas for the ABC radio, all the rest of it, and you'd fund that because I think that's very beneficial to a lot of people.
Yes.
But as far as the other funding, no, it would have to be subscription. So they'll have to sell it based on their merit if people want to pay a subscription to it. Taxpayers. And the same with SBS. SBS was started up in about the 70s, and that's costing around about 300 million a year. That's costing for SBS, maybe a bit more now, I'm not sure. But that's another thing. People can go on their computers and they can watch live streaming if they want to go back to their own countries. You know, I think we've got to get past us being a multicultural country. We are Australian. If they want to go back and look at their own countries, go and do it at your expense, not the taxpayers.
Well, what I say is no immigration without assimilation. You come here and join the great Australian family and you embrace our culture. Don't try and bring nasty things from
Well,
some
we've
other
often
place.
discussed this on this program when I'm here on Friday mornings, and my view is that we stop immigration absolutely and totally until we get people housed.
Yes.
And then after that, we can have very selective immigration for people who are going to add wealth to this country, and that could be cultural wealth, it could be financial wealth, but it's got completely and absolutely out of hand.
As far as permanent residents, coming in, you can do that, Ian, but you've got to be mindful of a lot of these businesses and big organisations can't get the hired help that they need, and so a lot of these people are moving out here as permanent residents with their families, and it's just not on visas. So I think you need to keep a window open there for these specialists coming into the country. Otherwise, we're only going to cut off our noses by our face until we can get our educational system back on track and teaching the kids, because kids in our country are 2 years behind. You know that. You've written it in your book, The Green Murder. I've read your book. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So I've learned a lot through your book. But the educational levels, we've slided so much, and we've failed our future generations because they can't read or write. And I spoke to a minister years ago and I questioned about the unemployment. She said, Pauline, the problem is a lot of these people can't get these jobs because they can't read or write, and we're pushing them through the system. So what I want to see is that managed immigration by all means. And yes, they have to. Just to give you some figures, 30% of Australians are actually foreign-born. We have 4.8 million people in Australia who are either permanent residents or on visas. And visa holders at any time now, we've got about 2.5 million that are in the country on visas, tourist visas, but then we've got close to 3 million who are just on visas. And we've got over 100,000 that have overstayed their visas. And they're using our system. So once their visa is up, they don't leave the country. They actually then just go and blend into society. And we can't find them, they're not chasing them up. And then if they are caught, they then use our tribunal to go after their, to stay here in Australia. Once they're before the tribunal, they then can get a bridging visa, so we allow them to work.
We have immigration lawyers who openly promote their particular skill.
We also have a difficult situation on Saturday night. I was talking to a fisherman, and he says that he has crews of men from Kiribati because he cannot get people to get out of bed and go to work.
Yeah. Well,
You
we've
just
allowed
can't get
that to
people
happen,
work.
haven't we?
Yes.
because of our welfare system, Jeremy.
Yes.
This is it. We've got fourth generation on welfare. Then we've got people that have been on it for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Why?
But
My policy is, right, you get welfare 2 out of 5 years. Sorry, go out and work the other 3 years.
But the method in their madness is exquisite, because if you have all of these people on welfare and you have all of these people in the public service and you have all of these people, migrants that you've let in, you have got a voting base that will keep you there forever.
50% of a house, every second house in this country has some form of government payment.
Well,
on the government did you know that?
It's terrible.
Yes.
And the only way out is getting people to pay more and more tax. I mean, it's a self-destroying philosophy. And
on the topic of tax, we often talk around this table about our major issue is just the absolute government waste and squandering on consultants and committees and NDIS and Aboriginal. It's just so we reckon we could halve the tax take.
Because the politicians would never they've never run a business. They're
Chalmers,
hopeless.
he's not charming me, but he's going to mess around with the taxes in May to our detriment. Stop wasting and spending money that you don't have. And get the debt down. The interest rate on that's going to go sky high.
I'll tell you what they did. You know, after The Voice, when 60% of Australians nationally said we didn't want The Voice, they gave $10 million to Aboriginals who felt they were depressed after losing The Voice.
And that referendum cost $500 million, $500 million. Yeah. And they still won't take no for an answer. But
I'd agree.
Has anyone ever thought about making inflation tax deductible? Meaning,
no, this would be interesting.
Well, you know, if the dollar in your pocket is not worth tomorrow what it's worth today, and I didn't cause that loss, if it was a gain, I'd be paying tax on it. But if it was a loss, I've just got to cop it. And if I didn't cause the loss and the government policy did, you see, that would put a brake on inflation, because the moment the government realised that people were claiming as a deduction their inability or inefficiency, they would soon have to sharpen up their act. What do you think?
I have heard that. Actually, I just heard that recently about the inflation. You're right in what you say. How would I go about it? No, I'm not going to make a comment, because I've just put on the spot here. I'd like to think about what you were saying with it. But how
it would frighten the government out of that.
Yeah, but how would you actually do that in a tax return or anything like that? You know,
you can use tax creatively, and I think it should be used. When I was growing up, not that I've really grown up yet, but when I was growing up, private schools were tax deductible because, well, you're not putting your children as a burden on the public system. And private health insurance was tax deductible. Yeah. You were encouraged to do that because you didn't want to be a burden. You wanted to look after yourself. You were encouraged to be independent, self-sufficient. All of those have been slowly, mostly by the Keating-Hawke government, stripped away over the years. You know, I think putting those sort of incentives back into the system and using the tax system to do it would be quite creative. People have got to understand there's a reward and an incentive, and there is a penalty if you don't do the right thing.
If they do it, okay, which I'm not sure, you might be able to tell me. I don't believe there should be free education in our universities. I think people should pay their way.
Well, I think that's fair too.
And therefore, if they're going to pay for that, the university, HECS, should then be used as tax deduction. You can't expect someone out there who's on the tools at 16 years of age to be paying their taxes towards someone to get a higher education and go on to be a better job. But what really annoys me is these courses that they're doing will lead to absolutely nothing. About transgender or all these other stupid bloody things, and the taxpayers paying for it.
Well, we've got too many universities and too many offerings of courses. You know, you can do a course in left-footed Morris dancing for gender diversity. Where are the jobs? Absolutely
See,
none.
we shouldn't be paying for that. That
Well,
should
we
not
do.
Be,
That's
that
our
should
problem.
not
We
be
do.
a HECS debt.
And
Pay for it yourself. And I'm telling you, another thing gets my goat is these people that are, you know, no hope of they retire from their job, fair enough, but then they go on and get a HECS debt to go to university, no hope of actually paying that back because it's just filling
Well, that's
their,
immoral,
filling their
isn't it?
time in. They shouldn't be allowed to get that HECS debt. Sorry, collect your superannuation. You go and pay for your own education and want to go to university, not the taxpayer.
No, if I was on a pension, say the age pension, I'm not allowed to go and get a job. If I do, I lose my pension according to what I'm earning. So there is
Correct,
a disincentive.
Well, we've got a policy now that I released before the last election. If you're an age pensioner or a veteran, you can work unlimited hours, will not affect your pension or your healthcare card.
Wonderful.
And all you do is pay the tax on your earnings like
Yes.
any other worker.
Perfect.
That's our policy.
Perfect. And when a politician leaves politics and he's on or her is on a pension.
No. That was cut out in 2004 due to One Nation. We actually pushed that, correct. We got rid of the politician's pension. If you're elected prior to 2004, you get the pension. Albanese will get the pension.
Yes,
Susan
yes.
Lee, she will retire with that pension. Now what you do, if you lose an election now, you get what's paid a resettlement, and you get 6 months of what your wages that year. So that's all it is. That pension's gone.
The point I was going to make was that you could leave, take your pension, and then go and immediately get another job and not have any penalty being paid through your pension. So treat everybody the same.
Correct.
Give everybody the same deal.
And I don't know if people are aware, but this is where you got federal court judges or judges that come under the Australian Constitution. They're paid a pension, so they get their pensions about 60% of their wage for life. So judges get it, and then it's handed on to their spouses.
Oh, good God.
Which I'm totally against.
We're being wound up. I think James says, you've had enough time with Pauline.
I don't know. It's been interesting. It's been wonderful.
Well, it's different. It is different, and I hope... how soon can you take over?
Oh, look, I'm quite willing and capable. I think I'm able to do it. But
well, I know you are.
Like I said, I'll get the right people around me to do it. The next election will actually tell Jeremy. They've brought out they did a survey in the media, and I'm not responding to this because they wind you up, but they did a survey right across the country of over 8,000 people, and it's come back to say that One Nation would pick up anywhere between 44 to 56 seats if an election was held. Look, that all sounds well and good, but the true polling is at the ballot box. But I'm going to wait and see what happens tomorrow with the South Australian election, where we pick up the vote. And it's going to be up to the elected members here to prove the worth of One Nation, that your vote is not wasted. I will continue to call for accountability, putting out policies,
get good candidates.
Force major political parties, which we are. Like now they're picking up a lot of my policies I've been speaking about over the years. We're forcing them to listen to the Australian people. Immigration is a big thing, so we're forcing their hand and pulling that back. Cost of living. So I'm just going to keep putting it out there to gain the trust and confidence of the Australian people. And I say to people, they say, well, a fellow said to me yesterday, he said, what makes you think that you'd be a Prime Minister? And I said, well, why couldn't I? I said, what has Albanese done for you? I said, what qualifications do they have that I don't?
Exactly.
And the whole thing, it's not that. I'm not doing this because I see myself as being Prime Minister of this country. It's not about that. It's about driving an agenda that we must change the direction that we're going.
Yes.
And if it's not about Pauline Hanson, it's about getting a group of grassroots, salt-of-the-earth people out there to represent you with honesty and truthfulness. And that's what my aim is.
Well, more strength to your arm, Pauline.
Thank you.
Go get them.
Yeah, no, it's good. I just want to say thanks to the people out there who are listening. if you've had an opportunity to vote for One Nation in the South Australian state election, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. In the next, as we travel around the country, with the next election is Farah, and then we've got the Victorian state elections, which I'm going to go after to get rid of that obnoxious Labor Party in that state and give representation. And then the federal election, it's very important that we make sure we keep pushing forward.
Well, you look fit and strong and you sound great.
Thank
You've
you.
got all the ideas, so there's nothing really between you and the success you've worked for so hard. It's within grasp.
Yeah. It's, I came into this very naive about politics. I had an understanding what I thought's right or wrong, being a businesswoman. But, Jeremy, over the years now, 30 years, actually, a couple of weeks ago, 2nd of March, I was actually first elected to Parliament. I think over that period of time, I've gained knowledge, experience, and as you get older, wisdom as well.
Yeah. I remember meeting you 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a backyard barbecue or something. I can't remember who was with you, but it was out at Walkerville or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Long time ago, at least 30 years ago.
Yeah. So
And you haven't changed a bit.
It's been interesting. Oh, I think I have, but anyway, but thank you for the compliment. But no, it's been an interesting journey. It really has, my life. And I'm just so grateful to be in the position that I am in now. And people come up to me, you have no idea how I feel. People come and say, you're our last hope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just feel, sometimes it's such a weight on my shoulders, but I know that we can do it, and I can't let people down. They have to have
I
that
think you'll
voice.
find plenty of people there to help you. If you need help, it'll be there.
We are. We're gathering that.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Ladies
Lovely
and-
to meet you, gentlemen. It's been time.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you do.
coming. Ladies and gentlemen, Pauline Hanson.
It's very fancy on old Delancey Street, The subway charms us so when balmy breezes blow to and fro. And tell me what street compares with Mott Street in July. Sweet push carts gently gliding by. The great big city's a wondrous toy, just made for a girl and boy. We'll turn Manhattan into an Isle of Joy.
Stay with us. We've got Professor David Flint with us in a second. Professor, are you there?
Yes, I am.
God bless you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And how are you, Jeremy?
Very well indeed. Professor Ian Plimer is just walking out the door, but he said to say hello.
Oh, thank you very much. And I suppose the city's full of excitement.
Well, well, we have 2 elections on tomorrow. You know that?
No, I didn't. What's the second?
Well, we have a backdoor voice in South Australia. Even though it lost, the voice was lost convincingly at that referendum, I think Victoria's done the same thing. They've introduced a backdoor voice. It is an Aboriginal parliament. It's a parallel parliament. They had a bit of trouble getting people to come forward and want to serve, but they got enough to actually get a quorum or a parliament, I don't know. And it was explained very, very nicely by the Premier, Peter Malinauskas, that yes, all legislation will have to be put before this Aboriginal board. And they have, they may agree, they may not agree, but we don't have to take any notice of it. That is to say, we don't have to. You know, we don't
You
have
have
to
a
listen.
third chamber.
Well, that's exactly right. It's a parallel parliament.
Yes.
Now, you know,
This is a vote for their second member, isn't it?
yeah, this is
Yeah.
second thing. And guess Professor Plimer just walked back through the door. You didn't get very far.
No, I didn't.
So,
Well, good morning, David.
Good morning, Professor Ian. How are you?
I'm mixing in bad company in this room, but
He's very tolerant, though. We've just had Pauline Hanson with us for an hour, which was most interesting. I find her very impressive.
I was incredibly
she is.
impressed by that. She has got policy thought out better than the two major parties.
Yes.
She's thought this out.
Yep, and
Well,
she can explain it.
As they long have. I just put up a piece on the Spectator Australia site on One Nation's 10-year crusade to secure Australia. And it's all about their attempts to ensure that we don't have the problem with what's happening concerning our fuel now. And they went to great lengths in the Parliament to try and ensure that we would be free of any threats by Iran.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. We're just organising microphones here.
Yes, and the extraordinary thing really was that they were so often thwarted by the two main parties in attempting to ensure that we had the reserves, that we had the potential conversion of gas and coal into petroleum and diesel, all sorts of things that they argued, particularly through Malcolm Roberts, who is an experienced coal miner.
Yes, he was an engineer in the Hunter Valley coal mines. He knows his stuff. And what worries me in this country for a long while is that we have used West Australian iron ore and exported that to China. We've exported coke and coal to China. They have made steel, and they've constructed on the surface with that steel tanks that hold 1.2 billion barrels of crude oil. So they've been preparing for a long while we've been letting our whole system drift. And I think we have real sovereign risk problems now.
Yeah.
We do. And if you just look over, and I just put up really a brief summary, the position taken by One Nation, who is normally everybody in the commentariat and everybody in politics says, well, they may be interesting, One Nation, but they have no policies. Well, when you look at this crucial area of having policies to ensure that in a situation like today, we would not run out of fuel, One Nation was running rings around the other parties.
And Pauline Hanson this morning was talking about policy, and I've never heard anyone in the major parties talking about that. They have real policies, have thought them through, and they are for the benefit of the average person in Australia and their long-term policies. And I think the punter is finally waking up, saying, well, I've had a gutful. These people are talking common sense. They might get pilloried in the press. Fine, I'm going for them. I'm going to vote for them. No one can stop me voting.
Yes, I do think that the changes in the leadership, the move of the leadership of both the Nationals and the Liberals to a more sensible leadership, not perfect, but more sensible, only came because people were indicating that they were moving to One Nation.
I think you're absolutely correct.
I also think that Labor, much to its surprise, has found that the real workers, that is people who work with their hands, particularly, they are waking up to the fact that the Labour Party is not a party for the workers. It's moved from that to being a party for the intelligentsia.
Yeah.
So-called.
No,
So-called.
Absolutely true. I mean, back in the day when I suppose it would have been in the 40s and 50s, Labor was very much a Labor Party for the worker. You're perfectly right. Now they're intellectuals and academics.
Yes. If you go into the Parliament and you just check who was a manual worker, because most of them have come through, as with many in the coalition, particularly the Liberal Party, most have come through from becoming lifetime career politicians. And that means when you're at the university, you work in the party or you work for a politician, and you really start from that, and then you learn all of the ways to manipulate people, which seems to be the principal activity of politicians in Australia, and then you're on the lookout of having somebody who will be your protector so that you can get a safe seat. So we have these people who famously have had no other career than being a politician, and both parties are doing it, and we're losing out. We're not getting people who have real experience. Now, Malcolm Roberts was a coal miner, and then he became a coal mining engineer, as I understand it, and he has a mind which is always searching for solutions outside of the ordinary.
Yes. No. Well, I know Malcolm well. We often talk on matters climate, and occasionally are on the same radio program together, and he does his homework. He knows his stuff. And Pauline Hanson's the same. She actually reads books, gets information, talks to people, and searches for people that can give an independent opinion.
Jeremy, I'm so glad that you've got Ian on the show today. Whenever somebody comes to me and talks about the climate and they're quoting a schoolgirl or former schoolgirl in Sweden who has opinions on the climate, I always refer them to what Ian Plimer has said, and making the point that he is Australia's best-known geologist with an international reputation and is very well established, and that I think the killer. There's always a killer argument in political matters, and his killer argument for me is that he puts it very sensibly in one of his books, where he says, "Well, we've had in the history of this world about 6 ice ages." And at the beginning, and do correct me even if I'm wrong, at the beginning of every ice age, there was much more CO2 in the atmosphere than today. And yet, the ice age developed into a situation where in some parts of the world you had kilometers of ice over the Earth. And how could that possibly happen if CO2, man-made CO2, has this special quality that it creates global warming, when CO2, which apparently wasn't man-made in those days, had the opposite? Well, certainly it didn't stop whatever was going to happen to the climate.
And we see that in this state, in the Flinders Ranges, we see that we've had 2 massive ice ages with kilometres of ice at sea level, at the equator, and the atmosphere had 20% carbon dioxide in it compared with 0.04% now. So tell me, does carbon dioxide drive warming, or is it totally and absolutely unrelated to natural planetary processes?
Yeah.
I think you stunned everyone by saying it was the sun and the distance from the sun and how we rotate and all those things that are fascinating and you know so much about.
Who was that fellow who started Greenpeace?
Patrick Moore.
Dr. Patrick Moore. I loved his line where he said, if these people had one scrap of evidence that CO2 caused global warming, don't you think they would present it?
You'd never hear the end of it.
But there is no evidence.
No.
Yes, even Matt Canavan, who's usually very sensible on this, said when he was being interviewed and trying to explain his gratuitous attack on Pauline Hanson, which I thought was of no purpose because they should be working together. He said, well, of course, I accept that CO2 has created this problem. We do have a problem, but I don't think that the solution is as extreme as is being proposed. So it's that 1 foot in the water view that...
what are they frightened of?
Well, he's now leader of the party. He's not as independent as he was. And that's the problem he's facing now. And he makes a mistake of instead of saying, well, the evidence is that carbon dioxide doesn't drive global warming. He's now trying to keep green people in his party, and God knows if there are any Greens in the Nats, the executive, who are probably the poison for both especially the Liberals, but less so in the Nats. And I think now he's very restricted with what he can say. Previously, I thought he was able to be very free.
So we're prepared to turn the economy upside down, wreck the country, all for something that is a fallacy, ain't true. But
isn't it extraordinary?
Isn't it?
And I think Donald Trump, I think, reflected what I've tried to suggest in my columns. I've been suggesting just follow the money. Donald Trump says if you follow the money, you'll find it's the biggest fraud that's ever been perpetrated.
Yes. And nobody's prepared to blow the whistle because they're all sitting around the trough.
Yes, and of course the communists in Beijing are laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, and burning our coal.
And they're selling us all these this completely useless paraphernalia, which is going to. We're just not going to know what to do with all of these windmills and solar panels.
In this period of a fuel shortage, you've got to be very happy that you drive an electric car and you can actually survive while all the peasants who are burning these fossil fuels are having conniptions because they can't fill up their tank. You have to be very, very comforted by the fact that you've got a Chinese electric car.
Smug.
There's something awfully Monty Python about all of this. It's really weird.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, around this table, everyone drives internal combustion engines, and when you look in Jeremy's garage, there's about 15 cars in there that chew up fossil fuels. Isn't that fabulous? Putting all this plant food into the atmosphere.
Yeah, well,
he's actually an environmentalist. He only drives one at a time, so the other 20 he keeps off the road. He should be awarded a medal.
Well, they've all been given a nice home. That's
right. They all look very comfortable there on that lovely floor.
Yeah.
There was
amongst the books.
They had a man on the commercial radio in Sydney this morning, and he was pushing electric trucks. And somebody then phoned in and said, when you have an electric truck, one of the really impossible things is the weight of the battery, because most of the effort used in driving the truck is to carry this enormous battery, and heaven knows what it does to the roads.
Yeah, there was a wonderful... I think it was a question or a statement. Anyway, the government was being ridiculed because the federal government had not built the promised number of charging stations on the main roads so that people could get out of the country with a feeling of security that they could get to their destination and get back. They were supposed to build 400 of these charging stations. They only built about 30 or 35. And when questioned as to what the problem was, well, they were having a bit of trouble with the solar cells to charge, and the real problem was that they had to have a diesel generator at each charging station, just to make sure if there wasn't if it was needed, but it had to be there. What's the point?
Can you imagine having a charging station in some parts of Melbourne and Sydney which are not too savoury, and while your Tesla is being charged up over a 4-hour period, you could be mugged, you could be stabbed, you could be raped and robbed. It's fabulous.
The car would be up on stocks.
Oh, all the wheels are gone.
Wheels would be gone.
And in a country which is so vast. I mean, this is not Holland, is it?
No.
We're not a concentrated country.
No. And in Holland, the windmills are picturesque. Not like these goddamn awful things that they're sticking up everywhere.
I can't believe how tall they are compared with the height of... I believe that many of them wouldn't fit under the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
No, that's correct.
If they were on a boat, for example.
Well, the worst part about that is that they lease the land from farmers who are suffering drought and they want some drought assistance, and so they get paid to have one of these turbines put on the land, which the companies lease, and they're mostly foreign companies. And when these turbines get to the end of their life, which is fairly short, the farmer is then left with the problem of cleaning up the mess. They walk away. They've made the money. And the poor farmer who wanted to drought-proof himself
the professor said, David said that the lease doesn't provide for that eventuality.
No, it doesn't. No.
Oh.
So all of a sudden the farmer owns that contraption.
No,
Is that what you're saying?
He has the legal responsibility of cleaning up the mess.
Okay. You mean the concrete bunkers that it sits
the
on?
Concrete, the steel.
And what about the unit itself? What happens to that?
Well, the unit itself has got a short life, so...
Well, it's still got to be disposed of.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. There's a bit of scrap money.
I mean,
they're
huge.
No scrap money in the foundations.
I noticed in Denmark they're making homes out of those big units.
Really?
True, yeah. Yeah, they once they come to the end of their life, they've been recycling them and turning them into homes.
Oh, well.
Nick
Sans the blades, of course.
Nick Cater, who writes for The Australian, took some film of these windmills that he'd found abandoned. They were just abandoned in Queensland, and they hadn't got rid of them. They just left them in the bush.
Good God.
Couldn't do that in any other business.
Yes, no. And I think I read an article, an excellent piece by Ian in Spectator some time ago, where you pointed to all the poisons that come out of these machines, and I was appalled that anything like that would be allowed to be placed anywhere.
No, we're saving the planet. That's what we're doing. You know, if you've got a mining lease and you're operating a mine, you have to have a bond with the state government, and they hold maybe 30 or 50 million of your money in case you go broke, and they can use that for cleaning up the site later. And they hold that 50 million. They don't give you interest on it. And after it's been cleaned up, when you finish mining and got the sign off, you get that money back. But it generally takes about 5 years to come back.
And they've had the use of it all that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so why can't you do that for a wind turbine? Why can't you do that for a solar panel?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you should, shouldn't you? There's a principle there. Why make exceptions?
Yes. Yeah. It's a system that works.
Yeah. But when you look at the logic, or the lack of logic, that we export our coal to, say, India, where electricity is sold for 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Last time I looked here, it was somewhere between 48 and 52 cents a kilowatt hour. Now, the Indians are burning coal. Are we thinking that they're doing it in another atmosphere, a parallel universe somewhere? Why would we prevent our people from having cheap electricity while we're quite happy to export the coal to be burned to give somebody else cheap electricity?
Jeremy, I've told you many times, don't use logic.
God help us.
Well, it's a bit like what you said about rising seawaters, that apparently it rises in some parts of the world and not the other.
Yes, and the sea isn't level. When you sail from the coast of Peru to the centre of the Pacific Ocean, you're actually sailing downhill because the Andes have a gravitational pull on the sea and pull the sea level up higher next to the Andes.
Good God.
So you just put it in neutral and downhill you go to the centre of the Pacific.
Well, if the sea was rising, you'd imagine that all that land in your lovely city of Sydney, Professor, all that beach frontage and harbourside stuff selling for hundreds of millions of dollars, you'd be giving it away, wouldn't you?
Yes. I think there's a gauge at Fort Denison, which shows that the sea level hasn't changed much since it.
No, not since 1857 when that gauge was put in. And Fort Denison was built to keep out the Russian Navy in the Crimean War. It was finished after the Crimean War was finished. And as an aside, they put a measuring station Okay. And so we have extremely good records of what's happening at Fort Denison. Now, it has shown since 1857 a couple of millimetres of sea level rise. Now, that might not be the case, because when you load up material with the weight of the rocks on Fort Denison, you actually can get a sinking. So it's not necessarily a couple of millimetres rise since 1857. It could be a sinking.
Yeah, and what time of day were you measuring, and whether it was high tide or low tide? Or?
We have a tidal measuring station here in Port Adelaide. It's a post out in the Gulf, and there was a chap called Tony Belperier that looked at the historical records and looked at what was happening geologically. Yeah. And we have had a very substantial sea level rise at Port Adelaide, and that's because the post is sinking.
Well, can you imagine the Opera House, most famous building in Australia, if the water is rising, it's right on the water edge. I mean, the front stalls would be underwater. That's right.
I'm just trying to think of an opera. David,
to go with it.
With this, an opera where
Merchant of Venice.
The sea. Anyway, that's a ballet. I'm trying to think of an opera, just as the Opera House.
So some of the small islands in the Pacific,
the Flying Dutchman,
are volcanic, aren't they?
Yes.
So they'd be sinking. The border's not rising. Maybe
we've got island nations in the Pacific and the Indian Ocean, and there have been a number of surveys done of those islands, starting in 1842 with Charles Darwin, and the idea was suggested in 1833 by Charles Lyell. And since then, we've had satellite measurements of about 1,500 atolls in the Pacific and the Indian Oceans, and most of them are getting bigger. Why? Because coral is growing, and it just loves growing outwards, and so the area of these atolls is increasing. And if sea level did rise, or the atoll sunk, which is the normal process, they're sinking, then the coral would keep growing. The coral can grow faster than the rate of sea level rise. What kills off corals, what kills off atolls, is a sea level fall. And we see that all through the Great Barrier Reef. The micro-atolls are at about 2 metres above sea level. That's the micro-atolls that formed during the warmest period of our interglacial, which was about 8,000 to 4,000 years ago. We've got dates on those. So you get land rising and falling, you get sea rising and falling, and corals love it if they're exposed to the sun and the air for low tide.
I wish we could get you two gentlemen into politics, but you don't want to do it. You don't want the job.
Well, I must say I was very impressed with Pauline Hanson here today. She's got her hand on policies. She's got her hands on how the system works. She's obviously thought it out very well. She clearly gets very good advice, and I think the average punter out there has realised that.
Yeah, it's taken 30 years to cut through, but I agree with you.
Resilience and persistence, isn't it incredible?
Professor, have you got an interesting weekend coming up?
Well, I think the most interesting thing is speaking with you. But I'm going to a Chinese show tonight. The what are they called? The Feng Chen. These are they are rebellious concerning the Chinese government. Yes, and they belong to a belief in China who are they're being persecuted, as are the Muslims in China. Yeah. Yet there are no demonstrations in Sydney about this. All of the demonstrations in Sydney have been about what is allegedly happening in Palestine.
Absolutely.
Well, we're having a wonderful day tomorrow. We're all voting many times because the system allows you to vote many times. Yeah. You don't have to show any ID.
No. Vote early, vote often.
Isn't that extraordinary that we don't... We are required to, when I go to the post office, for example, to collect something, they normally ask for a driving license.
Exactly. Yeah. And you could easily in this country have at a polling booth someone with a laptop tied into the internet, and if you crossed your name off as David Flint, immediately the whole of the Australian Electoral Commission has you as a person who has voted. No one else could come in and vote again. Right. And I suspect that in a lot of the seats in Australia, unionists are voting maybe 5 or 6 times.
Professor Flint, we've got to go, but thank you so much for your time.
A great pleasure. Lovely to talk to you, all of you, and I wish you well, and I wish the state of South Australia well, the only free state in the Commonwealth.
Well, we were free settled.
I'm always reminded by my South Australian friends.
Yes, we're very proud of that. Great to talk to you again.
Thank you.
Talk soon. Professor David Flint.
When you can't find a friend, you still got the radio. Singing with the when you can't find a friend, you still got the radio. The radio. Listen to the radio. The radio. Listen to the radio. Still got the radio. Listen to the radio. The radio. Listen to the radio.
Telephone number if you'd like to ring us, 0491 65 68 60. A border collie just came through the door. See you, Professor. Professor Plimer is just leaving, and we're getting a glass of wine, which is awfully nice. I'll introduce you in a couple of seconds to Dr. Neil Domigan. He is a really interesting man. He's a scientist, but he's also an author. Has a new book out. Tell you all about it. In the meantime, happy birthday if you're having a birthday, March 20. American fast food restaurant chain Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, is founded as Sanders Court and Cafe by Colonel Harlan Sanders in North Corbin, Kentucky. Now, a couple of things there interesting. One is that he had nothing to do with chickens, cooking them or otherwise, until he was 75 years old. Yeah, he built that whole fast food empire at a very old age.
Maybe at that point he wasn't bothered by his cholesterol.
And the other thing is that he was never a colonel. But he looked like a colonel.
Looked like one.
So that's the story behind him. First flight from London to South Africa. Caroline has discovered this. Is Tony going to dial up the doctor? Okay. 1920, the first flight from London to South Africa lands. How long do you think it took? The first flight from London to South Africa?
Days, weeks, possibly months.
1920 was the year. It took 1.5 months.
Goodness me, 6 weeks.
Yeah, there'll be a flight. I hope
that's a lot of aircraft food, isn't it?
I hope the in-flight service was good. Malcolm Fraser, Australian Prime Minister, Liberal, 75 to 83, dies at the age of 84. That was 2015. 2,500 women trample guards and floor walkers to purchase 1,500 alarm clocks announced in a sale in a Chicago, Illinois department store. Believe it or not, what would 2,500 women want with alarm clocks? Gee. Anyway, if we get some more time before, there's a thought. Maybe we could find a song from Vera Lynn. What a wonderful voice she had. 1917, popular music singer, known as the Sweetheart.
Got a Loretta.
No.
Vera Lynn was so famous.
Vera Lynn, as in the White Cliffs of Dover and all of those sort of things. We'll meet again. We'll meet again. Lovely song. Born in East Ham, London, died in 2020. And I think she was a grand age. Well, she obviously was.
Beautiful voice.
Okay. Now, let's talk about this fascinating book. Dr. Neil Domigan. I hope I've got that right, Doctor.
It's Neil Domigan.
Domigan. Right.
That's right. As opposed to damn again.
Now, as a scientist, I don't know, how many books have you written?
Only one.
Aha. So this one you've been probably sitting on for a long time.
Well, I had the key thought that is that we'll talk about. And I wanted to actually keep control of that as opposed to publishing through the scientific media, because we've all seen how distrustful the scientific media is, especially in the COVID scenario. It's as corrupt as anything.
Enlarge on that. The scientific world was corrupt. Corrupt in what? Its interpretation of COVID or its administration?
As in all things, and administration and individual scientists and egos and money, and when all those things come together, then you get the spectrum of behaviour. And I could run through a whole bunch of examples. I mean, there are high-profile examples, like I worked at the Pasteur Institute, and there was a guy, a medical institute in France, in Paris, and the guy who discovered the AIDS virus, a French guy, this guy Luc Montagnier, there was an American visiting scientist, and he said, "Hey, I think I've discovered the cause of AIDS," and he gave him samples of the virus. This guy Robert Geller goes back to the States, and he publishes in America's top magazine, "Hey, I've just discovered the cause of AIDS." And in the same week, Luc Montagnier published in the top European journal Nature, "I've discovered the cause of AIDS." And so the Americans used the American invention for their AIDS test kits initially. And then there was a very large payment and deal that Reagan had to organise with, I think it was Mitterrand, about 4 years later. And so it occurs at all levels.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, depending on where you are in Australia, there's a lot of resentment about that COVID era. In Victoria, they're furious that so many people were sent bankrupt, and the lockdown was excessive and extreme, and people felt they were being treated like criminals by a government that had just simply lost the plot. But
I can understand, because the thing is, the government knew that it was a bioweapon, and they didn't want to freak out the populations that it was an engineered Chinese bioweapon. And so in a situation like that, they probably moved to worst case scenario and were looking to do what they could to save as many people as possible. So, and I guess nobody really, there was no playbook, there was no, everyone was flying by the seat of his pants and trying, that's my view of it, trying to do the best, safest thing possible. And in some cases, it was excessive. Yeah, I think on a macro level, there is the playbook. If there's a bioweapon released, you need to close your borders and do stuff. So they did that. Then, as you say, everything after that was a bit ad hoc. Yeah. But we got through it, thank God. Well, it's still here, isn't it? So yes, yeah. When did you write the book, by the way? Yes, I took about 4,000 hours to write, because I had to learn how to write. And it's after my first draft, I gave it to an editor, and she said to me, "Neil, you've got to learn how to write. There's a big difference between telling a story and actually writing." So yeah, I had the idea about six years ago, but it took me 5 or 6 years, because I was still working, to actually write the novel. And so now that I've done that, I've finished working, and I'm engaged as a full-time author. What's it called? It's called The Deity Constant. The Deity Constant. And it's a geopolitical thriller. What's a geopolitical thriller? Well, it's essentially it's a bit like a crime book on steroids. Some people say it involves actually geopolitics, espionage, and then you can have an overlay of religion and science or whatever in behind that. So it's 400 pages of fiction and actually 2 pages of non-fiction. And actually, to an extent, it's a Trojan horse. And that I said the 2 pages of non-fiction, which I'll talk about in a minute, is essentially buried in the book. And it's a way to take this non-fiction message out to the world. So if you like, I can speak about that now.
Yeah, because this is what caught my eye, that here was a book, a work of fiction, but with a couple of pages that was more you the scientist than you the author. Basically, you can prove, or you have a formula outlined in those 2 pages that establishes that God does exist.
Yes, so specifically it establishes that intelligent design was required for life on Earth. And so intelligent design, aka a deity, an energy force, some external influence, Allah, God, was Brahman, whatever. Yeah. So I can just run through how that was developed. So,
yes.
Essentially, I conducted a thought experiment, and thought experiments use logic and simple deduction. No physical experimentation is done. For example, Einstein conducted a thought experiment in 1905 when he derived the theory of relativity. So, if you like, we can take 5 minutes now and conduct this thought experiment and just run through the logic.
Yeah.
So, at sort of one point in time, there was no life on Earth.
Yeah.
I think that's irrefutable. We can agree to that.
Not even microbes and amoeba?
Well, at one point in time, there was no life on Earth. The Earth, obviously, is about 4 billion years old, and it was really hot when it was first formed, obviously molten rock. The environment wasn't there for life to exist.
Yep.
So at a period of time, there was no life on Earth. And at another period of time, there was the first living organism on Earth. And so those two some points establish the parameters of the thought experiment. Mm-hmm. So we can say, okay, what was that first living organism on Earth? Mm-hmm. And it actually probably wasn't a kangaroo. It was probably, as you said before, a simple microbe, a simple unicellular organism, something like a cyanobacteria or a simple bacteria.
Yeah.
So all that makes sense, doesn't it? That's irrefutable.
Yeah.
So then we can say, okay, what are the molecules that need to randomly come together by chance in one place at one time to form this very first living organism?
Yes.
And we know, looking at a simple bacteria, that it needs around 300 proteins. So these proteins would have had to occur randomly by chance. And so we'll talk about some numbers first, because the numbers we're going to be talking about are very big, and then we'll come back to the specifics. So as an example, you know that if you roll, for example, a normal dice, the chance of getting a 6 is going to be 1 in 6. And if you roll 2 dices, so 2 die together at the same time, the chance of getting 2 6s is going to be 1 in 36 because of the different variations.
All right.
And if you have a million-sided dice, obviously that you roll the dice, and the chance of a certain number you choose coming up is going to be 1 in a million. So just remember that's an example. So right. If we go back to if we go back to this simple living organism, we know that these proteins are going to have to occur or be made by chance, these 300 odd proteins. And proteins are made up of building blocks or amino acids. For example, insulin. You've heard of insulin, obviously. Insulin is a small protein, and it's made up of 51 different building blocks or 51 amino acids. And there are 20 different types of amino acids. So theoretically, in position 1, you can have any one of those 20. Position 2, you can have any one of those 20. So you're already up to 40 variations, already up to 400 variations just at position 2. Mm-hmm. Now, an average protein is around 100 in length, so you can imagine the number of permutations are quite large. And you can work that out using simple Euclidean maths, simple maths, you can work out what that number is. And as an example, we said we need about 300 proteins.
Mm-hmm.
The chance of 30 proteins that are needed for this living organism randomly occurring by chance in the right sequence is the same as everybody on Earth rolling 400,000 trillion million-sided dice and all getting the same number.
Yes, remote. Wow.
And
you thought that up.
And so that's the chance of 30 proteins. We said we need 300. Now, in addition to the proteins, you also need, for example, DNA in this living organism. And the DNA, the length of DNA will be anything from 100,000 units to 1 million units. And its DNA is made up of 4 building blocks, A, C, G, T. The numbers to randomly form the correct sequence of the DNA. And remember, we're talking about the first living organism. There's no selective pressure to make it form in a certain way. It just has to occur randomly. And that number is just obscenely minute. For example, if we think of the number of atoms in the universe, now it's around 10 to the 80.
A lot.
10 to the power of 80. It's a huge number. Now, the chance of getting the correct sequence of your DNA on about 150 units is about 1 over that number. That's only 150, but we need 100,000 to 1 million.
So you're basically saying it's just not possible. There had to be some divine intervention or architect.
Just a contrary to that, Neil. Despite the very low probabilities, if you include the other dimension being time, like 4 or 5 billion years, is it not possible that you can get those random things to eventually come up with the creatures that we have today who have evolved over time? You know, the evolution of animals and plants and all that sort of thing, given the other dimension being time. So if you wait long enough, anything can happen, sort of thing, from low probability random events. Is that worth considering?
Well, it is an issue, but it doesn't actually change anything, because if you have 400,000 trillion million-sided dice, whether you roll those slowly or quickly, you're still going to get the same. Now, we're talking about the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, as you know, and life probably occurred around 2 billion years ago. But irrespective of time, at a very specific point in time, the very first microorganism was formed. So all these molecules had to have been at that very specific place at that very specific point in time. Okay, never mind how long it took for them to arrive or whatever. We're just looking at the chance of those correctly forming. And so time is an independent variable.
Okay.
And so looking at the first organism, life either occurred by chance or not. And the numbers are just so ridiculous that those molecules, and we've only talked about protein and DNA. There's all the other molecules there, such as the lipid around the coat that forms the coat, and then things like micro elements, potassium, magnesium, calcium, all have to be the right concentration. Then you also have to have other complex molecules like tRNA and ribosomes formed, and so the formula that I've derived, and I've termed the deity constant, is a mathematical formula that really summarizes the known science on the chance of all those key different groups of molecules being formed. So we've just looked at a couple, the proteins and the DNA, and it's mathematically impossible for those to occur by chance. And so when we look at life occurring, there's only two possibilities. It either occurred by chance or not. And if it didn't occur by chance, what's the not? It's intelligent design, it's intervention, it's a deity, it's a god, it's a Brahman, whatever.
Yeah, but it's an incredible thing because most scientists are atheists or agnostics. Where did you come from before you looked at these figures and the probability of life being explained as an accident?
Well, that's interesting because, for example, Einstein, he was essentially a deist, and essentially a deist is someone who believes that life was formed by God. And then you've got essentially hands off. And famous deists, things, Ernest Rutherford, for example, George Washington, also people like Jules Verne, Voltaire. So there have been really prominent people through history who have actually been deists. So essentially, as from my background, I learned I learned at an early age that if you have knowledge, you can theoretically solve any problem. And for example, my great-great-uncle was the last Master of the Mint in England, and Isaac Newton was a Master of the Mint. It was a royal appointment, appointed by the King or Queen at the time, of the top scientist in the UK was appointed Master of the Mint. And my great-great-uncle, he invented dialysis, and he's got a chemistry law named after him.
Wow.
And it was in Graham's Law, and it's quite a big deal to have a law named after you because since, for example, since Pythagoras, which is 2,500 years ago, there've only been about 75 laws in physics and science and maths and the hard science. So really, just answering your question, I've spent time obviously studying. I've got an MBA and a PhD, and I studied science and religion all my life. And then this idea just hit me like a flash of lightning. And I thought, right, there was no second down thinking about it. It just came from nowhere. And then I just felt I've got to get this out there, and how am I going to do that? So I thought, right, the way to control it is to write a book.
Did you feel that perhaps you were being asked to, being recruited as a messenger? Did you feel any? I
felt very humble, and I felt a huge power and weight. No, I didn't feel a weight on my shoulders. I felt I had no choice.
Yes.
I've just had unlimited energy to be able to do what I've done.
So you feel that you not on a journey, on a mission.
Yeah, whether it's internal or external, it's a feeling I've never had before.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
and I'm just approaching it from a simple maths and science perspective. It's that's what we're talking about. I haven't actually gone into discussing or the actual religious side of things. This is just
what's your doctorate in?
Yes, I'm from Otago Medical School in biochemistry.
Ah, okay. Did this? I don't know whether it was a revelation or a discovery or what. How has that affected you? Have you become religious?
Well, I had an upbringing as a child, as a lot of us did, going to Sunday school.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of exposed to that. But now, I'm as I would say, I'm as sort of much a deist as any of the other global people are, because you just can't walk away from the numbers.
No. Look, I understand. But it's a fascinating concept to have a 400-page book, fiction, with 2 pages of scientific evidence and discovery, I suppose. How do you, after looking at it as closely as you obviously have, how do you perceive God? Is God? Who is he and where is he?
Who made God?
Who made God?
Is it a chicken and egg problem?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a different theories on that. So essentially just going back to the novel, it's really what happens in the world when a proof of God is found. And there's lots of forces in history have actually riled against science as a threat. an example was in the kind of around 1600, I suppose, when Galileo, actually based on the findings of Copernicus 50 odd years earlier, talked about the Earth not being the center of the universe. He was talking about a heliocentric a heliocentric solar system. The Earth not being the center of the solar system. And you had the church come out and actually put Galileo under house arrest because they saw that as being a threat.
Heresy.
The Catholic Church not having
heresy.
Yeah, and so it's interesting when you have information that certain things, there's a bunch of different responses to it, but who God is, whether I think everybody's got their own their own view on that, and that's in everyone's purview, and there's what I've done is just looked at objective known scientific and mathematical facts and put them together in a formula.
Well,
and so if we're looking at what God is, we're kind of moving more into the subjective domain.
To me, it's as simple as just in terms of faith, to demonstrate to myself that there is a God, I only have to walk in my garden. I can't imagine that just happening somehow, evolving. But I've got a romantic view of the world rather than a scientific view of the world. But somebody once told me the chances of the world just evolving would be a little bit like putting a bomb in the municipal library and having the explosion generate the Encyclopedia Britannica.
There's more chance of that happening.
Really?
Yeah, there's more chance that all those letters would come together to form the encyclopedia.
Yeah, well, look, I think what you're saying is very comforting to a lot of people who feel sometimes quite challenged as to whether or not it's sensible to believe in God. I certainly do. Do you find yourself praying?
I think everybody prays in their own way at different times. People say, "Oh God," and you hear the word they say in times of stress, and in the Australian Constitution that opens up, that speaks about God, and then in the American currency and God we trust. So it's something that's there, but it's not spoken about. It's interesting when you talk about faith, because faith is a belief in the absence of evidence, and now we have the scientific and mathematical evidence has been there, but it's never been put together so clearly.
Oh, I think it's brilliant. I wonder if it is not something you should make sure that the theological class gets to know about, because I'm sure they've never seen it in those sort of scientific terms.
And it's interesting, and it's discussed in the novel how the theological class reacts and how the industrial sort of military complex reacts, and different institutions have their own interests and self-interests, and they react to different things in different ways.
Yes. No, I agree with you. Do you think God is a man or a woman?
I think it's I think it's essentially a source of energy. It was interesting. I read a paper a few years ago written by a couple of American scientists who discovered some black holes. So they're hardcore physicists, and physicists really run straight down the line of hardcore science. And they were speaking about energy in the universe, and there's different energies, like things like dark energy and light energy and different matters. And they said that there was around 3 million years ago, there was, how they said, a new form of energy that they called quintessence. And they said about the time of the evolution of modern man, and which is quite interesting. for them to say, you've got hardcore, and that could be a finishing line in a theological paper as opposed to a hardcore physics paper.
Yeah.
But it was interesting that they just made the comment that, because energies wax and wane, and they said there's seemed to be this energy that they call quintessence happened about 3 million years ago, the onset of modern man. So I think, science and religion can come, obviously can come together and complement each other.
Yeah, yeah. Where do you think God is? We talk about this thing called heaven, but it's up there. Is it up there, or is it in the centre of the earth, or is it all around us? Where do you think God is?
Well, that's you once again. I think we've all got our own view on that, and different people have different relations, different forms of a relationship with God, be it through the heart, through the soul. And I've had some people say, well, what you're saying is maybe threatening people who have a relationship with God through their heart, because they're saying, it shouldn't be through the brain.
Mm-hmm.
But if anything, it's a reaffirmation. It's really saying, it's not actually challenging the position of faith. It's giving a reaffirmation of it.
What do you think happens when we die?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting. I think
Are you allowed to tell me?
I think the energy that individuals have is certainly shared and maintained with people who know the individual, and whether that's just as a memory energy or whatever, I don't personally think there's a soul suit, let's say a soul stadium where all the souls go, and that's where they.
So you don't think there's a heaven and a hell?
No, I think that your energy is your memory or whatever is kind of held within the people around you. I mean, that happens. I'm sure when you've had, for example, your parents after they died at different times in your life, when you're doing something, often probably stepping over the line, you'd hear your mother or father say, "Hey, Jeremy, don't do that."
Yeah.
And so, but that's just, there's a conscious or subconscious, but you can talk about life after death. Well, there is a life after death. And so that's an example.
What about reincarnation?
Yeah, all of that's, all of that's interesting, but there's I think it was Aristotle who spoke about the grey warbler and the cuckoo, where I think what the cuckoo does, it flies down and lays an egg in the grey warbler's nest, and then the grey warbler will, and then
bring up the baby. Will,
hatch the cuckoo, and when the cuckoo comes out, if there are any other eggs there, he'll throw them out or throw it in the others. And you can say, is it a learned behaviour or an inherited behaviour? And if you say it's an inherited behaviour, then that's quite interesting, because then you can say, well, can you inherit memory? And is there a difference between inheriting behaviour and inheriting memory? And if it's there's quite a fine line about inheriting behaviour and inheriting memory. And so that opens up another area in which to look about when we're looking about religion and faith and where you go after you die and all that type of thing. Because theoretically, to inherit memory, it has to be encoded in DNA, and the DNA is hardwired. So it's quite hard to see how you can inherit memory. But obviously different animals have different behaviours and humans have different behaviours, and we inherit those in different ways. So it's just something of interest.
We've all met people who are old souls. Somehow they have been here before. That's the only way I can explain the difference that some of these people have. I mean,
some very young.
Yes, absolutely. Some very young. Interesting. Doctor, are you on a author circuit? Are you likely to get to Adelaide sometime?
I hope so. I'm essentially trying to promote in the mainstream media the theory of intelligent design being required for life on Earth.
Yeah, well, I think you've got over 4 million people here who are probably scratching their heads and thinking, well, gee whiz, there's an interesting thought, the mathematical proof that God exists.
Simple math, simple Euclidean maths based on known scientific facts. Objective.
Doctor, wonderful to talk to you. Neil Damigan, scientist, author, The Deity Constant. Is it? Where's it available? I guess good bookshops and.
No, it's available on Amazon and sort of Noble and all online.
Yes. I sort of lament the decline and the demise of bookshops. I think it's so sad to see bookshops closing up. Everything goes online. I guess. Well, we're online. I can't knock that.
It's the same. It's essentially on sale on 20 or 30 e-platforms, and a number of those e-platforms supply bookshops around the world. So,
okay, right.
So, to what extent that is happening or not, yet I think it would. I think once the mainstream media pick up that's obviously going to drive the book sales on the other side. Which is great because obviously when that's monetized, I can then travel and speak about what I've done, which is what, to me, it's a million times more important than writing the book.
Well, Neil, just remember, you got my number, and if you're heading in our direction, I'd love to have you around the dining room table.
Hey, that's a fantastic invitation. Thank you.
No, thank you, sir, and thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
As I do too, thank you.
All the best. Dr. Neil Damigan, scientist and author, the book, The Deity Constant.
Roll out of bed, Mr. Coffee's dead. The morning's looking bright. And your shrink ran off to Europe and didn't even write. And your husband wants to be a girl. Be glad there's one place in the world where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Song about your favourite watering hole. What was that show called? Cheers. Cheers. Good name for a pub. I rather like the Bumper Bar myself. Now, I tell you what, we've got the Fringe. I think the Fringe is still going. Christine Esau certainly is still going. Chrissy, are you there?
I am, Jeremy.
How are you?
And yes, I am still going. And I'm still fighting fit. So
Okay.
I've managed to avoid COVID and colds and sore throats and laryngitis, which is, of course, one of the byproducts of all these events. You know, you're in such close contact with other people. And I noticed last week people in various theatres coughing away. And I thought, I hope I don't get ill. But it was all in a good cause. I've had a great month.
You kept on keeping on. Do you believe in God?
I do actually, but probably in a different way to your last person. I think that we have to believe that there is something, and I'm not sure what it is, but something that draws us towards trying to be better people and ultimately thinking that there might be, a pathway and that everybody should behave as if there is a God. And maybe that's the sort of thing that I like to think of. You know, if you really believe that there is a God, then hopefully it will temper your behaviour during your lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best thing we could do globally. I mean, when you think about all the wars that are caused by religion and gods and beliefs, if we could all believe in just being a better person and treating everybody kindly, we'd probably get rid of a lot of this. And I know that's a bit bit trite.
No,
possibly true.
No, the funny thing about humankind is that there's this thing called human nature. And I've heard it described in many ways, but the best description I've seen is jealousy, vanity, lust, and greed, all in equal portions. That's really what makes up human nature.
Well, there's not much of that kindness that's part of
No,
humankind.
doesn't mention
I'd like to
kindness.
see a bit more human kindness.
Yes.
And I think we'd get much further down the track if we all thought about that.
Yep.
And that's just in the way we treat each other. The people that aren't doing so well, the people that have different beliefs. If we could all sort of get on top of that. I remember somebody said to me a long time ago, if we concentrate on the positives and not the negatives in each other.
Yep. Accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative.
That's it.
Yep, I agree.
It's a good way. So if that's believing in God or believing in a goodness, then maybe that's what it is. I'm not sure.
You're such a wonderful journalist. Why aren't you writing in the Advertiser? I haven't bought the Advertiser for so long, I can't tell you.
That's probably because people like me aren't writing for it anymore.
Isn't that funny?
I think that journalism has gone down the PR path, and there's a lot of journalists that would love to still be writing and giving an opinion, an informed opinion, and doing research so that what they say is correct. But it's such an expensive business to have journalists on board, and they can do so well by having PR machines, but then they have all the errors with it. Influencers, I think, unfortunately, journalism has given away to influencers and social media, and it's a dreadful way forward because you don't know what the truth is anymore. One of the things that we strove to tell in the Advertiser was the truth, and you don't get that in social media. Everybody has an opinion, but it's usually ill-informed.
Who was your mentor? Who inspired you?
To become a journalist or to stay a journalist?
Well,
to stay a journalist, people old school like Don Riddell, Des Cahoon.
Oh, Des Cahoon. Wonderful.
Yeah. A lot of people. I mean, one of the things that I loved was that we used to have what we called a newspaper lunch once a week with Bill Guy, who's the foreign editor. Yeah. And as a young cadet of 19, 20 years old at the Tiser, we had the opportunity to listen to Bill spend 1 hour a week telling us what was happening where in the world. And so it was like a current affairs lesson in an hour, and we just brought our paper bag lunch along. So we had our sandwich, and Bill Guy had a picture of the globe, and he'd just use a pointer and say, this is happening there, this is happening there, this is why this is happening here, this could happen there. And it was fantastic. So I think Bill Guy would have been one of my mentors, Bob Jervis, I should say, clearly because he was the cadet counsellor. He listened to all our woes when we were sent out to do the weather and shipping rather than interview the Beatles. And, he said, your turn will come, your time will come. So I guess he was a mentor in English and prose and accuracy as well as
and spelling,
understanding. Yeah, all of that. I mean, we had to be accurate.
Professor Plimer was here with us this morning.
Yes.
As was Pauline Hanson.
Yes.
It's slightly chaotic, but every morning here is chaotic.
Amazing morning. With the elections tomorrow, I've already voted.
Yeah,
so my conscience is clear.
Yep.
30% of those eligible in Adelaide, I think, have already voted. And I voted last Saturday in the heat.
Wow.
It was a longer queue than it might have been if I'd voted tomorrow.
Well, apparently, according to Professor Plimer, you can go back and do it again if you want to.
I love it.
He was saying we were talking with Pauline Hanson about journalism and the standard of newspaper articles and interviews and things like that. And he said, because you obviously grew up in the era he was talking about, and that's the era of the cadet and the grading of journalists, and this is where you learned your trade. In my business, there wasn't a cadet system. Maybe there was at the ABC, I don't know. But
there was.
Yeah, but you learned your profession. It's not a trade, it's a profession. And you did it well.
it was a passion. I mean, we were very lucky when I applied. I had no idea it was difficult to get into journalism. I just wanted to do it. And I'd grown up. My mother was theoretically a journalist as a young girl. She wasn't allowed to be a journalist on air because only men held those jobs in her era. So she was almost an associate to a journalist at the ABC. Yes. And so I think I had, I used to read the newspaper every morning. It was almost a requirement at home that I understood what was going on in the world because Mum always did. And we discussed it over the dinner table. So I guess I had a leaning towards wanting to know more. And and I love talking to people. That helps. To be a good journalist, you need to really, really enjoy talking to people because that's the only way. Conversations, like Jeremy.
No, well, keep in mind the ratings came out, radio ratings. They don't have sort of ratings for this sort of thing that we're doing, apart from the fact that they tell us every 28 days how many people have
that's
tuned in.
That's pretty darn impressive in itself.
Yeah, but the radio ratings for Adelaide, particularly Adelaide, absolutely appalling that 5AA is number 7. It's rating number 7 in this city. Well, you would do a fantastic program. I don't know if you've ever done a radio program, have you?
Only with you occasionally. I mean, I think we've been talking on air for 40 years about different things.
Yeah. I think you were 18 when I first met you, I think.
I know. And I think we did Beauty and the Beast down in your...
Oh, yes.
That's what you called it.
Well, it was the Court of Public Opinion, but Beauty and the Beast.
But it was Beauty and the Beast set up.
Yeah.
We were the beauties, in case anybody out there is wondering.
Absolutely. We had some
fun doing that. So we've talked about a lot of issues over the years, and I think we've been talking as long as Pauline Hanson has been. So
yes,
I think back, and Pauline's a stayer. I mean, if nothing more, you've got to give her credit for still hanging in there. And
she's determined. She's got stickability, which is an important thing to have.
In politics particularly.
Yeah.
You get off the seat and it's gone in journalism. So, people used to hate taking their holidays because they were worried they'd be replaced.
Well, that's
They
true.
often hide their care.
You don't take holidays in radio because the person who does your program is either going to do it brilliantly and you'll lose your job, or he'll do it badly and you'll lose your audience.
You lose your audience.
So it's no win.
Right.
Don't get sick and don't take holidays.
Correct.
I wonder what happened to Nigel Hopkins. Is he still writing?
I see Nigel regularly.
Lovely.
He's writing, but more on the other side, if that makes sense. He's doing a bit of PR as well, I think, and writing other articles and working for companies.
Yeah.
I always
but
really
he's still
enjoyed
well
his...
and healthy.
That's sort of like the dark side, is it?
No, well, I suppose it is. But it's
I
also
always
the one that gets
enjoyed his
paid.
writings.
Yeah.
He's a very good writer.
Yes.
He's a very good writer. There were some fabulous writers when I was there, and we did it on the spot too. I don't know, the creativity of the journalists that I knew was astounding, and there were lists of people that you just felt so proud to be working alongside and be part of that cohort. I don't think it's the same anymore.
What was that lovely
9-to-5 job?
What was that lovely Scotsman, Robbie Brecken?
Oh, Robbie Brecken.
Robbie.
Yes, I remember Robbie.
Well,
yes,
sometimes you don't want to get on the wrong side of Robbie Brecken. Or Kennedy. What was her name?
Yes, Alex Kennedy.
Alex Kennedy.
Yes, they were all my era.
Yeah, you get on the wrong side of Alex. God help you.
Well, yeah, but a formidable woman, but incredibly good. I mean, she came with a tenacity. She was like a terrier to get to the bottom of the story.
She told me,
and Nigel too.
She told me it was a criticism. I think I was doing a TV thing for Channel 9 called Cordeaux Adelaide, and she said
I remember that.
He has all the charm of a store dummy.
I told you she had a way with words.
Yeah, and this is the woman who wrote up a crit on Paul Williams, who wrote he wasn't a particularly good singer, but he wrote beautiful, beautiful songs, and he came on a concert tour, and she went to the concert because she was the critic, the art critic or the TV critic or something, and she wrote him up in the most shocking terms. Just a terrible hatchet job. And he was on my morning program at DN the next day, and he spent the entire interview yelling and screaming and saying, "This woman, how could this woman have a column and write these sort of things about me? And then when he left, the interesting thing was he left to the university $20,000 to start a university course for journalism because he thought we needed it.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
I don't know what happened to the money.
I have to say, I think critics are sometimes too savage. I don't think that's what their role should be. I think that they can give it a rating and they can say, I didn't enjoy it and I saw faults. But I think critics do sometimes go too far, which is, almost what we were going to talk about, but we seem to have meandered off on another subject.
Okay, what do you want to get onto? You want to get onto the fringe?
No. I've done my bit on the fringe. I'm now exhausted. I mean, I wrote down my highlights.
Oh.
I think that my highlights were who came to Adelaide for the festival, and I think the prize there, the Globe, the Golden Globe, goes to the 3 Stradivarius violins, because we had 3 Stradivarius violins in Adelaide, all on loan, for performances during the festival. They were worth $10 million a piece. So we had $30 million worth of Stradivarius violins.
Why would you give somebody a $10 million?
To play?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of them was from 1830, for instance. I mean, it's a 200-year-old violin, and Constantine played that up in Eucharia, which was a highlight of the festival. So I think that was probably overall one of the things that I recall about this festival, or will recall. My favourite was what I was going off to last week, Gats. Yeah. That was extraordinary. Yeah. Sat down in that, and I thought my husband would walk out after 10 minutes because he started reading the book.
Let him.
And he was reading the book, and I thought, oh my God, we're going to have 6 hours of him reading the book, which he did, but without reading a word. He'd rehearsed, he learned the whole book off by heart. And then the actors start acting. They come in so that the book comes alive. Yeah. And so for 6 hours, with an afternoon tea, a dinner and a supper break, so you could go off and have dinner for 90 minutes.
Yep.
I was begging for more. It was just fantastic, and everybody came out of there just not exhausted but wanting more and talking about how incredible that was. So that was the festival highlight. I think the fringe highlight for me was probably London Calling, partly because Matt Tarrant, who's an Adelaide guy, a magician, and he started doing a magic show himself and then has become a bit of a world-class entrepreneur now. And he brought London Calling to the Fringe this year, and it had stars from Cirque du Soleil. So, a Fringe event that cost about $30, but you had a Cirque du Soleil performers in it. It was extraordinary. It was wonderful. So was Le Ronde. That was another one. I think French Film Festival, that's just starting, so I can't really talk about my highlights. So I've already seen a wonderful film called The Colours of Time, and it's on until the 22nd of April. But I was commenting on that at the opening night the other night, that everybody thinks that it's only for Frenchies, but in fact most of the people there were people that were interested in Champagne or visiting France or whatever. And Jodie Foster's in one of the movies called A Private Life. Angelina Jolie is in Couture, which is a fashion show that's on. So I think that's wonderful. I think we just have so much still going in March until Easter that it's just an exciting time to be in Adelaide and live in Adelaide and feel proud of what we do culturally.
It's a great place. It's a great place. I totally agree with you.
I was listening to Pauline Hanson and they were talking about how if they limit immigration, they should limit it to people that add to our, economy, but also our culture.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And that's what the festival and the Fringe and the film festivals, whether it be the Italian one, the Scottish one, there's a Scottish film festival coming up. There's an Italian one, a Spanish film festival coming up.
Tell me, when you go overseas to, Italy, Spain, France
mainly.
Do they have Australian film festivals there?
No.
It's a one-way street.
Yes. No. Well, maybe that's our fault. Maybe that's because, not only do we not own more than one warship, as you were talking about earlier.
Isn't that amazing?
We don't really promote at all our ability, and we should. I mean, the South Australian Film Corporation is extraordinary. Helen Leake, who is putting together a film on Monash, which we should be promoting. I mean, it's amazing.
Yes.
She goes out looking for funding for a film that will be extraordinary, and people in Australia think, I don't want to spend any money on that. So, and the government doesn't really spend any money on that anymore.
Our greatest soldier, Monash.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, I think that's a fault from here, not from there. And the French understand. I mean, we've just had Mary out here. While it's been wonderful to see her, she came out to promote Denmark. We don't do that.
No.
We just don't do it enough. We've got that LA week, but that's not really enough. We should be out doing more. And particularly for our artsy Australian Dance Theatre that is based in Adelaide and world class.
Well,
they go to France and they are applauded in France, so they have to do it themselves.
In the Cordeaux cabinet, you are going to be the arts minister.
Good.
Okay.
Excellent.
Caroline's winding.
To that role.
All right. I'd love you to take it on. Caroline's winding us up. She's winding us up.
To you. Have a wonderful weekend. The weather's great. Enjoy
thank you. Take good care of yourself.
You too. Thanks, Jeremy.
Love you
the
dearly.
Opportunity. Bye.
By my side till the night is gone. From the day I was born till the day I go, I want to listen to the radio. Listen to the radio. We got to go. We're way over time. Alessandro Volta reports his discovery of the electric battery. Here is the culprit. This is the guy we got to blame for all this crap. No, Alessandro Volta.
No, batteries are useful.
Oh, okay, but not in cars or trucks or tractors.
Batteries and iPads and where would we be?
No, batteries.
He discovers the electric battery.
Dildos.
He reports his dildos.
Well, where would you be without a battery there?
I don't really know.
Big lack of excitement.
Okay, I don't particularly want to go there, I think. Anyway, Alessandro Volta reports his discovery of the electric battery in a letter to Joseph Banks, President of the Royal Society of London. The year was 1800. How did they power the dildos before that?
Oh, well, it must have been clockwork.
Mechanical ones, yeah.
Clockwork. Just careful.
General Douglas MacArthur vows, I came through and I shall return. After escaping Japanese-occupied Philippines, 1942 the year, Vera Lynn. Did we end up with a Vera Lynn song, Tony, or not? No. She did some wonderful songs, Vera Lynn.
We'll meet again.
1917. She died 2020. That's a great age. That's 102, isn't it? 17, 18, 19, 20. 103. Vera Lynn, when she died. God bless her. Kenny Rogers, American pop and country singer, songwriter, the gambler through the years, the entrepreneur, dies of natural causes at 81. Well, I don't imagine that anyone would have killed him, so I'm assuming everyone dies of natural causes unless we're advised otherwise. 2020. I think it was a nice bloke. He came into the studio once, some years ago. Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers, his group, what was it called? Kenny Rogers and the First Edition or something like that. He had a group. The first newspaper vending machine was used, Columbia, Pennsylvania, in 1954. In 1345, the conjunction of Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, thought by scholars at the University of Paris to be the cause of the plague known as the Black Death. In actual fact, it was spread by fleas and rats and other animals. I thought it was Mary. What was her name? Was that a different plague? Different plague, sorry. Okay.
Different plague.
A.E. Douglas, American astronomer and inventor. Tree ringing. Oh, yeah. The idea of when you cut a tree, not that I advise anyone to do that, you can count the rings and you can see how old the tree is. Anyway, he died at 94. I wonder how many rings he had.
Well, the Greens like cutting trees down because they're pro all this green energy, which means deforestation and farms and all this.
A lot of nonsense. Smoke from Australian bushfires killed more people than the fires. 417 versus 33, according to a new study published in the Medical Journal of Australia, 2020. American publishing heiress Patty Hearst, convicted of armed robbery for her part in the 1974 California heist. 1976 was the year. Anyway, I hope if you are having a birthday or a wedding anniversary or something like that, that in fact you have had a wonderful day and it ain't over yet. One more, David Warren, Australian scientist and inventor of the flight data recorder, cockpit voice recorder as well, otherwise known as the black box, which of course isn't black, it's orange.
Orange. Did they come out of Adelaide or?
Born in Groot. Well, I don't know. How do you say that, Tony? You went to university. I didn't.
Which one's that?
Up the top. How do you say that? That was where he was born.
Oh, Groot, Ierland. I never heard of it.
Sounds like...
Born in Australia.
It sounds like something out of Scandinavia, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Dutch.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But he is an Australian. Anyway, he died in 2010, but he was born this day in 1925. And thank God you were, old son. Let me thank Gary and Tony.
It's a pleasure.
And Caroline and John Bruni and Ian Plimer. Pauline Hanson. I think she will have a great day tomorrow.
Star of the show.
Neil Damigan, scientist and author, Professor David Flint and Christine Esau. That was a full show. And Maria, up top, she always opens the show, doesn't she? Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you with a posting from the Garage, the Court of Public Opinion, Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. And again on Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. And we will be back next Friday, jeremycordeaux.com, as we are at the moment, round the dining room table. Marilyn Nusky will be with us to give us an update on what she's doing or trying to do to save the Brumbies. One of the highlights of the show next week. Believe in yourself, and thank you for listening to the Court of Public Opinion.
We're together, right or wrong. Where you go, I'll tag along. Remember me, I'm